Hello, SpongicX's here. 1998 truly was a great year for N64 gamers. We were introduced with two of the greatest games ever made in both Banjo-Kazooie and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Great games for single-player audiences. But it also gave us the first entry in one of the greatest multiplayer franchises, aside from Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. And that was Mario Party. The game that's likely the highest cause of divorce and broken friendships and scorched palms. Okay, maybe it didn't go that far, but I can guarantee it did cause a lot of sibling fights and rivalries, and it did indeed scorch palms. While local multiplayer board games or minigame compilations were nothing new, Mario Party really reinvented it with its own unique genre, mixing a Monopoly-inspired board game with minigames thrown in on the side. What other games have attempted such a strange yet effective hybrid before? Since then, there have been over 16 entries in this never-ending party series, and I decided to revisit each and review nearly every entry in this franchise, going over the game's boards, the minigames, the features, and more. So starting off with the original 1998 version, for this review I will be playing the N64 online version for Nintendo Switch, being the only official re-release of the game, along with being the cheapest and easiest way to play the game, plus it looks a lot nicer than the N64 original. That, and I have no way of hooking up my old N64 for recording devices anymore, so yeah. So, the game opens up with a silent cutscene showing all the characters having an egotistical argument over who should be the superstar, whatever that means. Toad decides to host a party of events to determine who really deserves to be labeled the superstar, as he leads the crew to the game's hub, Mushroom Village. Mushroom Village is a simple point-and-click menu, but it's still very nostalgic. It's so nostalgic that Nintendo even remade it in HD as the hub for the celebration game, Mario Party Superstars, for Nintendo Switch. Going back to this game kind of makes me sigh, because all these buildings had such unique-looking Toad characters hosted inside of them, with different sizes, shapes, and facial features, yet pretty much every Mario game nowadays has to dumb it down with lazy, recolored Toads with no personality. Even Mario Party Superstars got rid of all these unique-looking Toads and replaced them with just recolored Toads. It really strips Mario Party of its original unique identity. And they also got rid of the cool music and different kind of music that you could listen to on the inside of these buildings, so it kind of sucks the originality out of Mario Party. So each building offers different features and modes. The first building is the Mushroom Shop. We can take the coins that we earn from Party Mode and spend them here for enhancements and side features. Something I wish Mario Party games would bring back. Actual rewards for playing the game. It looks mostly empty now, but that's because I bought near everything that was originally here. I'll discuss more on the stuff that can be bought down the line, but two of these items I still have yet to buy. They're the option to basically block off Koopa Troopa or Boos from the board maps. Okay, that sounded kind of wrong. By Boos, I meant the ghosts, not the alcohol. And so, Koopa greets us at the start goal of each map and offers players who reach the goal to get a 10-coin bonus. Players can unlock the option to shut that off. I'm not sure why you'd want to shut off such a feature, but Boo, on the other hand, I can kind of understand depending on who you are. Running into a Boo on a map will give you the option to have Boo steal a range of 1 to 10 coins for free from other players, or you can pay Boo a fee to steal 1 star from another player. Compared to later entries, it is cool how you can steal coins for free, even if Boo does steal a lot less than he did in every game since Mario Party 2. Players also don't need to button mash to try to fight the Boo off. It was a pretty useless feature to begin with, because no matter how fast I button mash, it doesn't really seem to help reduce like how many coins I get taken away, so I don't even bother. So yeah, I kind of prefer how Boo was handled in the first game a lot better, and it was cool how it gave you the option to shut him off if you didn't want him. Something that should have been included in every Mario Party game since, and it wasn't really brought back until Super Mario Party Jamboree, the latest entry. It's only accessible if you unlock the Pro mode, which shuts off like the Boos and stuff like that, so yeah. Up next is the bank. So not only is this a status screen for all the stars and coins we've collected through Party Mode, but it serves as the item vault for the enhancements that we've bought from the shop, including the options to ban the Koopa and Boo. So you can buy 2 additional coin banks with different gimmicks. So the default one, it just stores your coins at the end of each party. And then there's one that gives you a small % of interest to the coins that you collect at the end of parties. While the other is a 50-50 gamble that can either double or half the coins that you collect in parties. Considering how one 20-turn party can last as long as 45 minutes, and considering how ridiculous a lot of these unlockables cost, I would not recommend using the gambling bank. More often than not, it would halve my earnings. So yeah, I just stick with the interest bank instead. It usually will give you something around like, oh, it might give you like 1 to 15 coins extra for completing a mode. So not much, but hey, at least I'm not risking losing half of my coins. Some of these unlockable items include dice blocks that can randomly load into gameplay, including a warp block that warps a player to random spaces. It sounds more harmful than good, honestly, considering how it can kick in at random. So there could be a moment where you're right next to the star, and if that thing kicks in, that is bad luck. So an event block that can summon either Koopa, Boo, or Bowser. It's obviously a gamble since there's a 1 out of 3 chance that Bowser could be summoned and steal 20 coins from you, but you still have a more likely chance of getting 10 coins from Koopa or stealing coins or a star from other players with Boo. So it might be worth trying if you're willing to take that chance. We also get blocks that resemble the colored blocks from Super Mario 64. The red one that resembles the wing cap is the worst. I usually keep this one off at all times. You have to roll from 1 to 10. These colored blocks will randomly appear, replacing the regular dice block. And so if you get the red one, depending on what number you land on, it'll subtract that many coins from your coin count. So if you rolled a 10, for instance, you'd lose 10 coins. So yeah, I don't like keeping this one on. Yeah, there is a chance that it could trigger on a CPU, and it could help slower their progress as well. But I don't see the point in doing it. Usually I end up being the victim when I have that turned on, so yeah, I don't bother. The blue one does the opposite. It gives you coins to match the dice number, so that's one I usually like to keep on. The green dice lets you roll anything between 8 to 10, so that's one that guarantees you a high dice number, where the yellow block only lets you roll 1 to 3, so I usually shut that last one off, because, yeah, there are certain times where it could come in handy where you just need to land on 1 or 3, like, there might be like some kind of obstacle that's about to go off in a few turns, and the best thing to do in a situation like that is to try to get a low dice number. But again, like I said with the warp dice, these happen at random, and so it's not really worth the risk. So at first, I was kind of wondering why later Mario Party games didn't include these dice block options, and then it occurred to me, they did, but they fixed it. The problem with these dice blocks in Mario Party is, like I said before, they occur at random, meaning they can kick in at the most inconvenient times. In Mario Party 2, they introduced the item shops and item spaces, allowing players to buy or earn items to help us throughout the board map, including dice blocks that give us a double or triple roll, ways to randomly warp around the map, and they even give us dice that restrict our rolls to small numbers. So this was honestly a good evolution, for it allowed us to use our items at a time most appropriate to help players strategize. I do kind of miss some of the dice ideas that were introduced in Mario Party though, especially the blue dice. I don't think we ever really got a Mario Party game since then where, depending on what we roll, we get to collect that many coins. So yeah, that's kind of one that I wish they would bring back more. The option house will likely be the least visited menu for any player playing this game. So what kind of sicko wants to go there to delete their save data, especially considering how many hours you have to put into this game if you want to 100% everything. So it's also home to the jukebox, which serves as the game's sound test mode, so you can just freely listen to the music from the game. That's always a nice feature in games. So going back to this game just really makes me sigh, because the music in Mario Party games used to be fun, dreamlike, and unique, and nowadays it is so boring, generic, and annoying. I mean, you compare the music to modern Mario Party games compared to like the main console games like Mario Galaxy, Mario Sunshine, Super Mario 3D World. The music in those games are great, and so it's jarring when you go from a game like Mario Galaxy 2 to a Mario Party game on Switch or Wii U or something, and the music, it is horrible. It is ear-grating, it is bland, and then you go back to the original Mario Party Trilogy, and it makes you go, what the heck happened? There was so much personality in the music back then. So yeah, the option house in Mario Party, it has one of the strangest yet most interesting takes on the Mario Underground theme from the first Mario game. I would play you a sample, but, you know, Nintendo's very stingy about their music being on YouTube, so never mind. There's also a parrot you can buy from the Mushroom Store who appears in the options house. It's just a little fun feature where just clicking on him, he'll randomly spout out a sound clip from one of the players or NPCs in the game. So, kind of a cute feature. So, if we go back to the menu and take the raft, it will take us to Minigame Island, which serves as the single-player mission mode. We travel across the Mario World-inspired map and are challenged to complete every single minigame, some with very brutal requirements that aren't normally necessary when playing the game regularly. An infamous example is you have to play Castaway, and you have to beat it with 30 coins collected. So despite how tough and frustrating this mode can be, I really do love the layout and music of this mode. I love how the scenery really gives you a hint of what minigames you're about to play next. This is a very unique single-player mode out of the entire Mario Party series, but it's incredibly flawed. Some of these minigames are just brutal, and it expects players to beat them. That is just harsh, especially in a game that depends so much on luck. So if you manage to make it to the end, you are challenged to race Toad in Slot Car Machine, which is surprising because Toad is not a playable character in this game. He wouldn't become playable until Mario Party 5 on GameCube. So the reward for beating him is very underwhelming. You're hoping, oh, maybe you get to unlock Toad as a playable character. Instead, you're gifted with 2 exclusive one-player minigames called Bumper Ball Maze 1 and 2. So you roll around on a ball across these tricky, narrow pathways, and you have to reach the goal under a time limit. And if you manage to beat them both, you get a third and final bumper maze. So what's your reward for completing the third? Nothing. So I remembered my younger self being so disappointed by Minigame Island. I spent so many hours, and there were times where I thought I would never beat it, because back then I couldn't figure out how to beat the minigames where you had to rotate the joystick fast enough, and over time I learned that there is a faster way to do it, but more on that later. So I figured there had to have been a fun and exciting reward after beating all of these tough minigames. Only to get such disappointing minigame rewards in the end, it just didn't leave me wanting to come back for more. So I never liked needing to progress through a game by playing challenging luck-based segments. Single-player modes should not have to have modes like that. Luck-based games should be strictly for multiplayer, not for single-player. One thing I did find interesting, though, was how Super Mario Party Jamboree, it had a campaign mode very similar to this. It felt like it wanted to revisit this idea, but make it less strict. So, unlike this, where you have to beat every minigame in order to beat the story mode for this, in Jamboree, no, you get to choose like your own path, basically. So you can choose if you want to complete a minigame to progress forward. All that matters is you got to collect these mini stars in order to open up the boss gates. And so that was a really cool way to try to evolve this idea. I wouldn't say it's as visually impressive, or it's not as well laid out. It doesn't have as good as music as the one in Mario Party's Minigame Island, but it was still a really nice spiritual successor after so many years. Then there's the minigame house, where we can take the coins that we've collected from party mode and we can spend them on minigames to replay as many times as we want. The only downside is that a lot of these minigames are very overpriced. Some are 600 coins, and you're usually lucky to complete a party with only 100 coins in the end. So it doesn't help that it only banks the coins that you yourself have collected, while ignoring the coins and stars that the CPU have collected. This was an issue that was luckily fixed in the sequel, Mario Party 2. So you could also rent the minigames for a lower price, but you're better off just saving up to buy them. I managed to buy them all, and I can't imagine to tell you how many weeks or hours it took for me to get that many coins. To make matters worse, this isn't the first time that I've done it either, for I 100% unlocked everything on the original N64 cartridge decades ago, so it was a pain to have to do it all over again on Switch. The minigame house also features a little Fly Guy toy minigame that you can purchase from the shop. It's not really worth your time. You just spin the joystick as fast as you can to see how far it can fly, which, shocker, is not very far. And then it will insult you for not being fast enough every time. So, yeah, don't bother. I do like the idea of having to buy minigames. It's a cool way to try to encourage you to keep playing the game and store up on coins. The problem is that I think the price tags for some of these minigames are just way too ridiculous, especially in a game that requires so much luck, where any wrong movement can cause you to lose everything you have. And so it's not fun to spend an hour on a game only to end up with 5 coins, despite how there was a point where you might have had 200 or more. And so, yeah, it makes saving up for some of these minigames a real pain in the butt. And so Mario Party 2 was the last entry in the series where you could actually buy the minigames, although in Mario Party 2 they were a lot cheaper, luckily, and coins were a lot easier to collect in that game. I do think it might have been for the best that in every game since, you just unlock minigames for free play just by either first discovering them, or they just give it to you all at once. Personally, I like the idea of having to play them in the board maps first and then having it added to your minigame collection. For some reason, they scrapped that in some of the GameCube entries, so yeah. The best feature of the minigame house, though, is if you look over to this vase at the right, you will find the minigame stadium. Now, this mode is the quickest and easiest way to earn coins for those who just want to buy all the minigames as fast as possible. You just got to set the handicap to 50 coins. So, the minigame stadium lets you run around an exclusive star-shaped board map decorated with shrubs shaped like the roster. In this mode, there are no stars, no happening spaces, no chance time spaces, no boos, and no Bowser spaces. All you have are the red and blue spaces and the one-player minigame spaces, but landing on the red and blue spaces will not make you lose or gain coins. You also have the Koopa Troopa gold bonus, so you still play minigames after each turn, just like in the regular party mode. It's basically a simpler version of party mode, eliminating most gimmicks and only letting you earn and lose coins through minigames. It's a cool side mode, but it's too bad that this and Mario Party 2 were the only entries to have the minigame stadium as a feature. On to the party mode and board maps. Starting off, there are 6 board maps, each to represent one of the playable characters, and over time we can unlock 2 additional hidden maps. So for those who may have never played Mario Party before, the goal is to roll dice to move our characters around the board maps and collect the most stars. To get stars, you need to walk past Toad, who will randomly spawn across the board every once in a while. So, however, to get a star, you need 20 coins, which can be earned by landing on blue spaces worth 3 coins, while landing on red coin spaces will subtract 3 coins. The best way to earn coins is by beating minigames, which occur after all 4 players have rolled the dice in one turn. Games can last between 20 to 50 turns, with a 20-turn game usually rounding up to about 45 minutes. So each map has its own little conflict or story that can be resolved by the end of the game, treating the superstar like a hero and harshly punishing last place with humiliation. It's kind of shocking to go back to this game and be reminded of how mean-spirited Mario Party used to be, as if getting last place isn't humiliating enough, but to see the losers getting ditched and brutally hurt is just insane. At least it was entertaining. Nowadays, the award ceremonies in Mario Party games are just so bland and uneventful. So, Mario Party 1 and 2 had the best presentation when it came to these party modes. They had like great setups and great payoffs, and they just ignore it in the other games, unfortunately, making the party feel kind of uneventful in the end. To start a game, each player rolls a dice from 1 to 10, and whoever gets the highest number goes first, and whoever gets the lowest goes last. I hate to break the immersion, but it doesn't really matter who rolls first. The number is already predetermined before a single player hits the dice. I've said this before, but compared to every Mario Party game since the original developers, Hudson went out of business, the dice rolls have never been the same. The dice rolls used to be rapid, fast roulettes from 1 to 10, and it was so satisfying to see the characters jump at them and bash them open. Nowadays, they just simply throw the dice in a sluggish way, and it's only a 1 to 6 dice block. Has the most boring sound effects ever. It just sucks away the charm and thrill from the dice blocks of the original Mario Party games from Mario Parties 1 through 8. The same could be said about the coins. I love the original designs and sound effects of the coins from the first Mario Party, with their rounder shapes and star symbols in the center. These were obviously based on the coin designs from Super Mario 64. And just the sound you get from collecting a bunch of them at once, it was addicting and therapeutic. Ever since Mario Party 9, they ditched the Mario 64 coins. They replaced the coins to strongly resemble more of the bland oval-shaped coins from the original Super Mario Bros. On NES, and they use a higher-pitched bling sound effect when you collect them. It just doesn't hit the same as the ones from Mario Party 1 through 8. Does anyone else feel that way? I've never heard anyone else make that complaint, so please feel free to let me know in the comments if you feel the same way. It would really make me feel better, and because I feel like I'm alone here. I could use some support. Bring back the star coins and sound effects, please. I've already discussed bumping in a Koopa, Boo, and Toad on the maps, so here's what else we need to look out for on the board maps. So we have these little blue spaces with stars on them, and those activate what's called a single-player minigame. So whoever lands on it has to complete a minigame built for one player only, and if they win, they get coins, but they might lose coins if they lose the event, depending on the minigame. Single-player minigames have mostly been removed in every sequel since, but some games substituted them for item minigames, which are still single-player minigames, but they reward you with items instead of coins, and they're usually a lot shorter. So Mario Party is the only entry to not have items, so there are no item minigames here. The single-player minigames were an interesting idea, but they really slow the game down, especially since we're forced to slowly watch the brain-dead CPU slowly and robotically stumble through these minigames whenever they land on them. I can't remember if Mario Party 2 let us skip them, but luckily Mario Party 3 gave us the option to skip the CPU every time they land on an item minigame space. It requires pausing the game and messing around with the options. But it really stinks that the first game did not let us skip these, because they drag on forever. It's especially annoying if you actually go through a game where all the CPU land on the minigame space in one turn. It really slows the game down. Going back to the pause options though, Mario Party 1 does have a few pause menu options, but they're mostly used to just speed up speech boxes, skip minigame explanations, and save progress after every turn. So these are nice options for those who've played this game too many times and already know the rules. This is really something that modern Mario Party games should bring back, because I've heard a lot of people complain, myself included, about how Mario Party Jamboree, it was really slow with like the messages that kept popping up, and where in the original game you could just like button mash to skim through them, and so that makes it great for those who've played this game so many times. They already know the rules. We don't need these overly long explanations of where the stars are going to be and what they do if we buy them, or, you know, we don't need that explanation. We played these games for years. So, unfortunately, though, for Mario Party 1, these settings do not save permanently. So every time you start a new game, you got to set these options again. And it wasn't until either Mario Party 2 or 3 where it finally remembered our settings every time, forcing us to not have to pause and change the settings every time. That's an option that nearly every game should have. Then there's the happening spaces, these green spaces with question marks, and they trigger a map-exclusive event that can either help or sabotage players on the map. There's also these mushroom spaces that only seem to appear in this game. The mushroom spaces have a 50-50 chance of getting a mushroom that lets us roll the dice again in one turn, or we can get a poison shroom which sickens the player and forces them to skip a turn. Then there are the two spaces that are everyone's worst nightmares. Now first, there's the Bowser spaces, red spaces shaped like Bowser's head. Landing on them will summon Bowser to torture the players with a roulette, which can range from Bowser stealing a range of 10 coins, 30 coins, half our coins, to even all of our coins, along with stealing a star, competing in a minigame where the loser loses 10 coins, and chance time. Bowser is also spread across his own spaces on the maps, where bumping into him can lead to map-exclusive punishments, usually involving losing coins, and some of the later ones have it where you can even lose stars. So the game tries treating the Bowser spaces as the worst thing in the game, like the one thing you want to avoid, but the real honor to that, in my opinion, goes to chance time spaces. Chance time spaces are blue spaces with exclamation marks leading to a slot machine game that will force one player to exchange coins or stars with another player. These can range from harmless punishments like just giving 10 coins to annoying punishments like giving all coins or stars and trading all coins or stars with another player. Now this feature absolutely sucks for anyone who worked hard to get so many stars and coins, just to have them all stolen by a random roll of a dice. Losing just one star or 20 coins is bad enough, but how about losing everything by being forced to trade 200 coins or 4 stars to a player who has 0 of each? It is the most frustrating feeling I've ever felt in a video game, and now you know why Mario Party is the game that ruins friendships. After each player rolls the dice, a minigame occurs, but there are 3 types of minigames that can be triggered, and these are determined based on the spaces of each player that they've landed on, before the turn has ended. If all the players landed on red or blue spaces, we play a 4-player minigame, basically a free-for-all minigame where it's everyone for themselves to win. If 3 players have a matching red or blue color space, but one player got the opposite color, then we play a 1 versus 3 game. If 2 players got a red space while the other 2 got blue spaces, we play a 2 versus 2 minigame. So you're probably wondering, then what do the green spaces do? Before a minigame is selected, the green spaces will go through a random roulette to change to either red or blue. During the last 5 turns, we get an intermission where Koopa reminds us of what we already know, the current status of each player, who's in first and who's in last. He gives it usually a false prediction over who will win in the end, and he announces that the effects of the blue and red spaces are now doubled, meaning that we can either win or lose twice as much coins. So at the end of each game, an award ceremony occurs, and 3 additional stars are handed out called the bonus stars. One for who collected the most coins at one point in the game. So by that, it doesn't matter who has the most coins at the end of the game. It matters who had the highest amount of coins throughout the entire game. Then there's also a star for whoever won the most minigames, and one for landing on the most happening spaces. In the odd event that more than one player might have the same amount of stars, they'll reward it to whoever has the most coins as well. But if by the rare chance that 2 or more players have both the same amount of stars and coins, then they must roll a dice from 1 to 10, and whoever has the highest number is the superstar. Unlike modern Mario Party games, which have nearly 20 playable characters, the first game's roster is very underwhelming in comparison, only consisting of 6 playable characters, so basically the original roster of Mario Kart 64, including Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Wario, and Donkey Kong. It wouldn't be until Mario Party 3 where 2 more characters were introduced, and then it wouldn't be until the GameCube era where even more characters are added on top of that. So I've never really heard anyone describe the graphics of Mario Party before, and while it is horribly dated, I find Mario Party to be one of the best looking Mario games on the N64. It has characters like Mario, Luigi, Wario, and Yoshi looking the best they've ever looked on that console. Mario's model does have less polys compared to Mario 64, but it just looks sharper and more defined in shape. You look at like how Mario's body looked in Mario 64, and it just looks like a whole collage of messy shapes. It just looks ugly to look at, where in Mario Party, it feels like they use less shapes, and it just makes him looking sharper and just more well-defined, even though he still looks very blocky. I always thought the back of Mario's hair looked really off in a lot of N64 games, like in Smash Brothers or Mario Golf or Tennis, where it just looks like a big pyramid sticking out of the back of his head, and so I feel like it looks more natural in Mario Party. It doesn't look as sharp, and it doesn't look like it's sticking out too far. I'd say the only characters I think look awful in this game are Peach and Donkey Kong, but to be fair, I think Peach looked awful in every N64 game. It wasn't until the GameCube games like Mario Party 4 or Mario Golf Toadstool Tour where I think they finally got Peach a good design. Yeah, she had a really good redesign in that era, and it still carries over into a lot of games nowadays. Donkey Kong, on the other hand, he looks bad in practically every N64 game. I'd say the best he looked on N64 was Donkey Kong 64, and you could argue that model aged pretty badly too, but when you compare it to every other N64 game that had Donkey Kong in it, yeah, he looked a lot better in Donkey Kong 64. Mario Party had a darker yet more colorful art style. I honestly really miss the art style and colors that you'd see in games from N64 and especially GameCube. Ever since the introduction of bloom effects and modern lighting and shaders, too many games aim to simulate more realistic lighting, and it just makes everything look off, makes everything look pale or like a glaring eyesore, and there's always something about like shadows in modern Nintendo games that just look off to me. It's like you look back at some old GameCube games and you notice how the shadows look really soft and blurry edged, and so it makes me go back to like how shading looked like in GameCube games, and I really wish they would somehow bring that back. I miss when we had fantasy lighting in games, just giving off these cooler images that, yeah, they might not be realistic, but they're still really cool to look at. Seeing the kind of colors and lighting from N64 GameCube games mixed with the higher poly models of modern day games, I feel like that would make some of the greatest looking games ever made. Because I'm just sick of realistic lighting. I'm sick of like lens flare. I'm sick of just all these burning lights just burning into our eyes. You know, I just miss how everything used to be dark and vibrant. I miss that kind of art style. This game also marks the first time we got to see Luigi, Wario, and Donkey Kong in real-time 3D. While they were playable in Mario Kart 64, they were not in real-time 3D, for the characters were rendered as sprites from pre-rendered 3D models that would have been too high for the N64 to handle. Otherwise, Mario 64 gave us a look at Mario, Peach, Yoshi, Bowser, Toad, and most of the villains and NPCs that we find in Mario Party. This also marks the first 3D debut of enemies like Hammer Brothers and the bloopers. At the end of the game, during the results screen, we get some cool little pre-rendered character animations of the characters, and they strongly resemble the pre-rendered character select screens from Mario Kart 64. I wouldn't be surprised if they were from the same 3D models as well. Mario Party 2 does recycle still images from these animations during their character select screen, but they're lacking the animations from Mario Party. Now onto the board maps. To get to them, we have to enter the warp pipe at the center of the hub. Make sure to avoid the option to view the tutorial, or you'll be forced to endure a long, unskippable tutorial screen. The presentation for Party Mode is fun and unique compared to most entries, which just got more boring and static as the series went on. It really feels like we've fallen down a rabbit hole into a wonderland, as we see the characters magically falling down the pipe, as we select our character, select the settings, difficulty, and map, while we get this whimsical tune twinkling in our ears. The board maps in the first 3 games were unique compared to the rest of the series, where instead of 3D maps, they were flat images of pre-rendered CG backgrounds. It was likely done due to memory constraints on the N64 hardware. It wasn't until Mario Party 4 on GameCube where the maps were fully rendered in 3D. The backgrounds may be flat and motionless, but they have a lot of charm, kind of resembling paintings, very similar to the pre-rendered backgrounds of games like Ocarina of Time or Final Fantasy VII. One thing that shocked me about going back to the first entry is how small the spaces look. They are a lot bigger in later entries. The first board map is DK's Jungle Adventure. This map is flooded with pesky womps who are blocking pathways and they won't let us through unless we pay them 10 coins. There's happening spaces that can trigger giant boulder chases that chase players to the other sides of the map. Running into Bowser will have him forcefully sell us a 10 coin treasure resembling himself. It's one of the most basic maps in the game, good for beginners, but it's not one that I like to go back to very often. The ending has the winner using the stars to recover the jungle's golden banana artifact, while the 4th place loser gets chased by a boulder. Peach's Birthday Cake, a smaller board on top of a giant cake. We start at the bottom and spiral our way up the top of the cake. This is one of the few levels where the star is always set in one place, being the top center of the cake. However, there's a gimmick where the closer we get to the top, a pesky Goomba blocks our progress. He forces us to pay 10 coins to buy one of 4 seeds that will grow into one of 2 flowers. If we get a Toad flower, we can advance to the star. If we get a Bowser flower, we are sent on a path towards Bowser, where he will force us to buy a Bowser cake for 20 coins. There's also these happening spaces which can give us the option to spend 30 coins to plant a piranha plant. If an opponent lands on the happening space with the player's piranha plant, the plant will steal a star and hand it over to its owner. This would be one of the simplest maps in the game if it weren't for the pesky Goomba tolls and the plants. Otherwise, it's still a fun map. Personally, I wish it gave us the option to shut off the Goombas and piranha plants. Like, if it was just a simple lap race to the top and over again, I feel like that would have been a fun option, but forces all these annoying negative gimmicks as well. So, at the end, the superstar lights up all the cake's candles as the loser gets attacked by a piranha plant. Yoshi's Tropical Island, one of my childhood favorite maps. 2 Yoshi lovers are separated by whirlpools and we need the power of the superstars to reunite the two. This fruit-filled map is divided between 2 islands, one with Toad and one with Bowser. We can take these bridges to traverse between the islands, but thwomps are blocking us and they won't let us move unless we pay them coins. The default fee is 1 coin, but players with a lot of coins can actually raise the toll to make it more impossible for other players to try to get through. You can raise the toll all the way up to 50 coins, however, it will permanently stay that way for the rest of the game. I've never seen anyone foolish enough to actually raise it up that high. Usually I've seen people just raise it up by just 1 coin at a time, but sometimes they don't even raise it at all. So the happening spaces cause Big Bertha to eat Toad and spit him up on the other island as Bowser swaps places with Toad. It really makes this an anything can happen kind of map. You can be so close to Toad one turn, but then someone will land on that happening space, and that means, oh boy, you have a date with Bowser the next turn. So it can either give you good luck or bad luck, depending on that flip of the dice. So if we bump into Bowser, he squeezes the player with an overinflated inner tube that explodes, and he forces us to pay for it, 30 coins. In the end, the 2 Yoshis reunite, and the loser gets chased away by Big Bertha. Wario's Battle Canyon. A war has broken out between the pink and black bob-ombs across these canyons, as we hop into cannons to fire to land on random spaces across the canyons to get to the star. At this rate, they miss an opportunity to call it Wario's Canyon. Happening spaces will cause the cannons to change directions. This is one map where it's real easy to avoid Bowser, since the only way to reach him is by paying a fly guy to take you to him, which why would you even do it to begin with? But for the sake of this video, I volunteered to do it just to show what happens. You can also pay fly guy to summon another player to the same canyon where the fly guy is, to try to sabotage a player who may be close to the star. The island of Bowser is flooded with 1-player minigame spaces. Bumping into Bowser will have him take 20 coins from you as he pushes you back into a cannon, and he fires you off back to the canyon where the fly guy is. The level ends with peace being brought between the bombs as the war ends, and Bowser fires the loser out of a cannon. Luigi's Engine Room is probably the most forgettable map for me. It's the one that I don't really enjoy going to. It's just a boring steam engine room with pesky gates that block off paths, and they require us to pay 20 coins if we want to swap them. So, yeah, there's really no point in wasting coins on something like that. We already had obstacles like this in DK and Yoshi's maps, so happening spaces just flip the gates, and Bowser's punishment has him operate a machine that produces 1 coin, and he offers us to pick it up, and then right after we pick it up, he says that'll be 20 coins, and then we're forced to pay 20 coins. So it is one of the funnier Bowser punishments. You're only losing 19 coins since he gives us 1 coin and then takes 20 from us. It just feels more like we lost 19 coins instead. So the ending does have a nice reveal though. As the engine room gets repaired, it's revealed that we were inside the engine room of a winged ship the whole time. It just makes you wonder, why wasn't that the level instead? We should have been running around on a giant airship the whole time, not inside of an engine room. Also, the loser gets tortured by Bowser with steam vents. Mario's Rainbow Castle is one of the prettiest levels with some of the calmest music. It feels like a cross between Peach's Birthday Cake with a little bit of Yoshi's Tropical Island. The map is mostly a one-way trip up and down a tall tower. Toad is always stationed at the top of the tower, but once a star is collected, or if a happening space is triggered, the tower rotates and Bowser shows up instead. Running into Bowser causes Bowser to give players a star. That's star, but with a Z instead of an S. The star forces a player to lose 40 coins. The star actually returns as a bad item in Mario Party 5, with an even harsher punishment, as it steals a star from a player instead of 40 coins. Completing this level causes a rainbow path in the clouds to appear, only for the loser to fall off the rainbow and needing to get rescued by Lakitu. Bowser's Magma level is a hidden level that you can purchase from the shop after playing each board map once. It's a pretty expensive purchase though, it costs over 800 coins. It's a volcanic level with split paths guarded by these creepy looking rocks with faces. I'm shocked this is like the only game that these weird little rocks appeared. It's like, you never see them again, so it's like, what was the deal with these things? To take a shortcut to the star, we can pay the signs to roll the dice to get closer to the star. But if we fail, it takes us closer on a path to Bowser. Bowser has a more harsh punishment in this level compared to the previous levels. He'll have us roll a dice to determine whether he'll steal coins or a star from us. Happening spaces cause all of the blue spaces to be turned into red spaces as Bowser triggers a volcano that burns all the blue spaces in the red ones. Winning this level causes the Power Star to destroy Bowser's volcano as the hero stands on top of Bowser's defeated body. Also, the loser gets no punishment this time, as they join in with the other players in supporting the Superstar's victory. I sadly don't have footage of this, but you get a real shocking surprise after you've collected 100 stars from Party Mode. Upon returning to Mushroom Village, we are shocked to find that the place is covered with Bowser's footprints, and they lead into the bank and into the warp pipe. As we visit the bank, we find out that Bowser had robbed the place, and he stole all of our stars, and he headed into the adventure pipe. As we head back down to the adventure pipe, the final level now opens, and it's called Eternal Star, a sci-fi level in space. The map takes place on a giant star that Bowser broke, and he wired all the pieces with teleportation pads. So here we are introduced to a long-forgotten villain called Baby Bowser. He is honestly one of the most confusing characters in the Mario series. One minute they say he's Bowser's son, but then there's many of them, so I guess Bowser has sons now instead of just a son. And then, so they appear in many of the early sequels, including the original Mario Party Trilogy, and even most of the ones on GameCube. So, the Baby Bowser characters appear in all the Mario Party games across Mario Parties 1 through 7, gapping between the N64 and GameCube entries. But out of nowhere, the Baby Bowsers were renamed to Koopa Kid in Mario Party 5. Then in Super Mario Sunshine, Bowser Jr. was introduced as Bowser's one and only son, and over time the Koopa Kids were just retired entirely with no explanation. I mean, many can argue that Bowser Jr. was a more interesting character than just some generic baby version of Bowser, but it's still jarring for Nintendo to introduce these henchmen offspring out of nowhere, rename them out of nowhere, and then flat out ditch them. I remember being so confused as a kid. So, Eternal Space has us having to use these teleporters to warp us to unpredictable ends of the map. There are multiple star spaces in this game, but unlike most levels where Toad was the host of the stars, in this one, Bowser and his baby Bowsers take over. And so, if we run into a baby Bowser with the star space, we have to pay them 20 coins like usual for a star. However, they will force us to beat them in a dice rolling match. And he lets us roll first, and if we roll a higher number, we get to keep the star. Surprisingly, I've seen way more wins of stars compared to losing of stars. Bowser has a strict punishment where he automatically steals a star from us every time. The happening spaces warp everyone back to start if we land on them. In the end, the stars are all rescued. They defeat Bowser and baby Bowser. They all form together to revive a giant eternal star, as all the players ride the star through space. It's a very triumphant final level with very Star Wars-like music to really fit this sci-fi-like setting. It's amazing how for the first entry in the series, it has probably the most levels out of any Mario Party game. They all have unique themings, designs, along with stories and endings to wrap them all up, something that many entries were missing since the introduction of Mario Party 3 onward. As for the minigames, what Mario Party game isn't complete without minigames? This has the shortest amount of minigames out of any entry in the series, excluding the disappointing Mario Party Advance. It's especially lacking in 2 vs 2 minigames, barely having any. I had a moment where the minigame Bash and Cash was picked 3 times in a row. That gets very annoying in a game where you just want to play a variety of minigames. Now, unlike every sequel in the series, this was the only entry to punish players for losing minigames, causing losers to lose a hefty number of coins. I'm glad they ditched this feature in future games. Getting nothing is annoying enough. It's worth noting that this entry has some of the most controversial minigames in the franchise, for they were actually responsible for injuring people's hands. Some minigames required players to rapidly spin the control stick as fast as they could, and it was physically impossible to do that with human thumbs. So players found that a faster way is to rest the controller on your lap, rest the palm of your hand on the center of the joystick, and rapidly spin your hand clockwise. Not only did this badly wear out the joysticks for many N64 controllers, with how flimsy and skinny they were, but worst of all, the ridges on the N64's controllers slit many players' palms, creating painful sores and blisters. The complaints from parents got so bad that Nintendo was forced to offer victims to call a number to get a free glove sent to their houses, to prevent future blisters. I can confirm that I was one of the many people who got my palm blistered, although I didn't bother telling my parents about it or anything, and we never called anyone to get like a free glove for compensation. So I can still remember the pain and annoyance of having to wear a band-aid on my palm, only for it to keep falling off from sweat, and yeah, it's not a pleasant memory. So every future Mario Party game got rid of the joystick rotating minigames, and they weren't brought back until the minigames were remade in Mario Party Superstars. The minigames were adjusted to be easier to play with. You could just rotate it with your thumb nowadays and be able to win the minigames, so it's less restrictive compared to how ridiculous it was on the originals. So, along with the Switch's joysticks being a lot softer, more rubbery-like, so it makes it less likely for you to get your palms blistered. So for many years, many players noticed that Mario Party never got re-released on Virtual Console, despite how Mario Party 2 was re-released on both Wii and Wii U. Not even Mario Party 3 ever got re-released, and some think it might be due to some of the gambling-based minigames, but somehow it ended up finally getting re-released on Switch anyways. So many think that the main reason Mario Party was never re-released on Virtual Console was solely because of the blisters issue. It's shocking that Mario Party finally got re-released thanks to Nintendo Switch Online, but it has a disclaimer warning players ahead of time that some minigames require rotating the joystick, and they advise that a glove is to be worn to prevent injury. So I've played the joystick minigames many times on the Switch version, and I was not wearing a glove, and I've still never gotten a blister. So on to the regular minigames. First we got Balloon Burst. So we alternate between pressing the A and B or Z button to inflate Bowser balloons until they burst. The first one to burst is the winner. The key isn't to inflate as fast as you can, but wait for the flickering to appear near the player's pump for a greater burst of air. It's a silly minigame, and it was brought back as a 2 vs 2 minigame in Mario Party 2. Bash and Cash, a 1 vs 3 minigame. This is honestly one of the most mean-spirited minigames ever, and it gives me trauma every time I play it. I have a bad memory of being poorly bullied in school, so when I got home, I tried cheering myself up by playing Mario Party, only for this miserable excuse for a minigame to show up. This is the last thing that a bullied victim needs to endure. One player is trapped in a slow and humiliating Bowser costume, as the other players have to gang up on helpless old you and beat the coins out of you. Seeing all of these characters ganging up on me and bashing coins out of me as I couldn't fight back, it just made me feel more miserable. This game is horrible. There is no way for the single player to win this one. Playing as the team with the hammers isn't fun either. The controls are way too slow and delayed, and it makes it really hard to land a hit. The coins fly out of you too fast as well, meaning they'll likely bounce into a random CPU. I absolutely hate this minigame. It's one of the most mean-spirited and depressing minigames. Super Mario Party Jamboree actually redeemed this minigame with a successor, where 3 players are helpless and 1 player has the hammer. The hammer controls are much faster, and the team of 3 are handed about 10 coins each to start the game, and they can keep whatever they may have left over by the end of it, unlike the original Mario Party, where it takes the coins straight out of your coin bank from the regular gameplay. It just felt a lot more fun and less miserable in Mario Party Jamboree compared to the one from Mario Party. Bobsled Run. A 2 versus 2 minigame where we start off button mashing to push our bobsleigh onto a sled track as we race to the finish. It's a fun minigame, but the frame rate and visuals have aged horribly, and it really makes this feel kind of sluggish. So there's a hideous glitch at the end where Luigi's face gets messed up, so have fun sleeping tonight, kids. This minigame also returns in Mario Party 2. Bombs Away. Bowser's pirate ship attacks the players as we run around on a small tilting island as we dodge cannonballs and avoid falling into the water. I used to love this one as a kid, but I honestly don't like it very much anymore. It's hard to see where the cannons are going to fall, and it mostly takes dumb luck. Sometimes the cannons will just stun you, and sometimes they'll just automatically kill you. It just feels way too unpredictable. This minigame returns in Mario Party 2, but it's amped up with bullet bills and a rocket finale. Bomb Skip Ball, a 2 versus 2 game where one player has a bomb and needs to throw it to the hoop on the other end, while avoiding the other team from getting it and scoring it through the same hoop. You can run around, jump, and pass the ball to your partner. This is a fun idea for a minigame, but with a lot of drawbacks. This should have had a 2.5D side-scrolling camera angle, and it should have had 2 hoops, one for each opposing team. The minigame's biggest crime, however, is the brain-dead CPU. They walk around like zombies. They do absolutely nothing upon grabbing the bomb, leaving the other brain-dead CPU open to stealing the bomb. I really wish I could have liked this, but the CPU just ruined this minigame for me. Bowl Over, a 1 versus 3 minigame where 3 players are trapped in bowling pin costumes, with nothing to do but slowly hop around with the A button, as one player bowls them over with a Koopa shell that we can steer with the control stick. Make sure not to hit the electric barriers. They're very easy to miss, unless you're as dumb as the CPU. If we knock over an opponent, we can take 5 coins from them. I actually like this minigame a lot as long as you're the bowler, but being in the pin costume could have been a lot better. What ruins the bowling pin gameplay is the invisible barriers that prevent players from hopping out of the way. Without these barriers, this minigame would have been a lot more fun. I'm real split on this one, to be honest. It's part fun, but part terrible depending on which side you're on. This minigame does return in Mario Party 2, but with the restriction of needing the bowler to bowl over all 3 opponents within 2 turns. If we fail, the 3-player team actually wins coins. So unlike the first game where the people in the pin costumes can get absolutely nothing, no matter what, they're losers. And so I do like how Mario Party 2 does give the players a chance to stick up for themselves. However, you still got the annoying issue of the invisible barriers, so it kind of ruins that minigame too. Box Mountain Mayhem. Each player needs to punch down a giant tower of boxes with coins inside of them, but some feature dummy boxes that fling us away. It's a fun destruction fest, but the controls do feel very slow and clunky. Bumper Balls. One of the first minigames that many people think of when they hear the word Mario Party. This chaotic minigame has players running on top of a ball on a small island as we try bumping the other players off without falling. It's a fun, tricky, and unpredictable minigame, but it can really get dull if there's only 2 people left. It really makes it feel too evenly matched. So have fun just watching 2 people bounce back and forth with nothing happening. It gets boring after a while. Super Mario Party did a great job at revamping this minigame, where we are rolling around inside the balls and we can rev them up for a burst of speed. So yeah, I actually do think they did a lot better at revamping that one for Super Mario Party. Buried Treasure. Each player presses the A button repeatedly to dig through the dirt and find the hidden treasure. It's actually kind of fun. Castaways. 3 rows of coin prizes float across the ocean as we flick the joysticks downwards to cast our line and rotate it in to reel in our rods. There are 3 ranges of distances that your rod can cast, but the sensitivity of the joystick makes it impossible to hit the right spot. You try lightly tapping it to cast it short, but instead it casts it as far as it can, which wastes a lot of time as you have to try to reel it in. This would have worked a lot better if we just had to hold the A button for a gauge to appear to show us how far it can go, Another issue is the field of view. It's way too easy for players to miss their catch due to there not being any like crosshairs or good way to imagine where your line is going to land. It's especially annoying for players who are on the very left or right of the screen. It might be a little easier if you're player 2 or 3, but if you're player 1 or 4, this minigame is a nightmare. There was a fun minigame idea here, but it's ruined by horrible controls and a bad point of view. Coin Block Bash. They call it 1 versus 3, but it's really more of a free-for-all minigame. One player starts off with a hammer, which they can press B to swing to knock opponents away, or we can swing it forward with the A button to smash blocks, while the other players can only punch and jump. The goal is to collect the most coins by bashing these blocks. Obviously, the one with the hammer will have the advantage of getting the most coins, but the other opponents can manage to knock the hammer out of their hands and take it for themselves. It is strange how the first Mario Party seems to be the only entry in the series where 1 versus 3 minigames do not count as team minigames. I'm shocked that they didn't make more games like these in the future. It's overall a simple but fun one, especially if you're the one with the hammer. Coin Block Blitz, a clone of the last minigame, but a 4-player minigame this time. The blocks aren't made of bricks, so they're easier to punch through, and they can contain more than one coin in them, requiring multiple jumps. Coin Shower Flower, a 1 versus 3 game. The player on the flower needs to be careful not to fall off, or the game ends. Meanwhile, 3 players below paddle around on these leaf boats to collect any of the coins that player 1 might have missed. It's obviously more fun if you're the one on top of the flower, but it's one of the better 1 versus 3 minigames. Crazy Cutters. We guide our characters on jackhammers as we draw out the shapes of Mario baddies. Whoever draws the most accurately wins, or so it should be. This game has a terrible sense of line accuracy. There were times where I drew near perfect lines, yet it rewards the CPU who clearly drew over the line multiple times. If it weren't for the faulty ranking, I would have given this a perfect score because it is a fun minigame. This minigame has a few variants, so we can either draw a Goomba, a Boo, or a Bob-omb. This minigame returns in the sequel, Mario Party 2, with even more enemies to draw out. Crane Game. The worst 1 versus 3 minigame. One player can be moved around on a crane as the other players are turned into plush prizes. The crane controller can either go for the coin prizes ranging from 1, 5, or 10 coins, or go for the opponents and rake in half of their coins. This one is absolutely hopeless if you're the victim. They say you have the option to button mash the A button to try to break free, but don't bother, it doesn't work. The CPU are overpowered to outrank you every time. So most often I have a range of 200 or 300 coins in a party mode, and I lose half of it because this damn minigame gets picked and I'm one of the plush prizes. So the CPU always want to go for whoever has the most coins, so yeah, I'm usually screwed every time this minigame gets picked. Meanwhile, when I'm controlling the crane, the button mash requirement is too extreme and I can never collect anything more than the 5-coin bag. I hate this minigame. It sucks no matter what side you're on, but especially if you're a plush figure. The plush designs are kind of funny looking though, but this minigame can lead to a lot of many lewd looking images depending on how you grab the other players. The animations just make this really uncomfortable to look at. It was brought back in Mario Party 2 as a revised challenge, being a lot easier and less punishing. Deep Sea Divers, a 2 versus 2 minigame where one player from each team is a swimmer tied to their partner's fishing rod. The swimmer needs to swim by tapping the A button and steering with the left stick to collect treasure chests, while their fishing partner has to rotate the joystick to help reel in their partner with the treasure. Make sure to come up for air every once in a while or they'll drown and lose time. It's not an awful minigame, but it's not fun to be the fisher. The treasure diver is basically the more fun part of this minigame. Desert Dash. We flick the joystick left and right at the right time to scoot across the desert while avoiding the thwomps. First to the finish wins. It's overall way too simple. It does return in Mario Party 2 as our hidden re-themed game called Dungeon Dash. Facelift, one of my favorite minigames, based on the interactive menu from Super Mario 64, where players could mess with Mario's face by stretching it. So this minigame mimics the same controls as we have to mess with Bowser's face to match an image, and whoever matched it the most accurately wins. This game got a fun return in Mario Party 2, but instead of Bowser, we have to mess with 6 variants of the playable characters. Ghost Guess, a 1-player minigame where we're surrounded by boos and have to guess which one has the coins before they gang up and take the player away. Guess wrong and we lose. I love the creepy visuals and music of this minigame, but I'm not a fan of the gameplay. They say to look out for the shadow of the boo that moves differently from the others, but they all look and move the exact same, so I just don't have fun with this one. It's just not a fun guessing game. Grab bag. Each player runs around with a bag on our backs as we try to get behind another player and button mash the B button to steal coins from our opponents, allowing players to keep their winnings or accept their losses. Ground pound, a one-player minigame where many wooden pegs are covered by butterflies and we need to ground pound all the flat top pegs, but some of them might have spiked tops and we need to avoid those. Even with the butterflies, it's still kind of easy to figure out which ones are the correct ones, but it's overall a simple yet effective game. Hammer drop. Each player runs on top of a tower and avoids the Hammer Bro's hammers, while collecting the coins that he throws. The Hammer Brother looks so bizarre in this game. It looks a lot meaner and nastier. Probably the meanest and nastiest a Hammer Brother has ever looked. And to think this is his first appearance in 3D, and it was his only appearance on N64. It wasn't until Mario Party 5 on GameCube where they gave us the Hammer Brothers' more cuter and modern redesign. I actually really like this minigame. It's fun, easy, and it showers us with glorious coins. Handcar Haylock, a 2 vs 2 minigame as we button mash to accelerate handcarts, as we tilt the joystick to steer on the track. This one has some very tricky turns and they require braking or they will fling us off the track. It's overall an annoying minigame, but it's made a bit easier in Mario Party 2, but it's still an aching button masher. Hot Bob-omb. Hot potato, but with a bob-omb. Each player passes the bomb until it explodes. Whoever it explodes on, it causes that player to be the loser. It might be a dumb luck game, but it's still kind of fun. This minigame also returns in Mario Party 2 as a battle minigame, and it's treated as an elimination game this time, where last one standing wins. Hot rope jump. We time our jumps with the A button to try lasting 20 jumps under a jump rope made of flames. If anyone gets hit, the game ends and they lose. It was an interesting idea for a minigame, but abruptly ending after one player loses is a real game killer, not to mention how it doesn't reward players who actually survived it. So the only way to actually get coins from this one is for everyone to actually make the 20 jump mark. And also the CPU never seemed to lose this minigame, so yeah. This minigame was done much better in Mario Party 2, where it was treated more as a survival challenge, where it rewards whoever managed to make it to the end, instead of ending as soon as someone gets knocked out. Keep away. A rare case where all the players have to work together to win. We need to get a key to the other end, but it's blocked off by these strange one-off enemies we've never seen again. The idea of passing the key to fellow teammates to get the key to the goal is a fun idea, but the CPU are brain-dead idiots who slowly meander around and practically hand or throw the keys to the bad guys. This one is just more fun to play with friends, but it is a nightmare to play with CPU. Knock Block Tower, a one-player minigame where a player has to jump and break boxes stacked on top of these thwomps in order to reach the treasure chest on top, but you need to avoid hitting the thwomps or they will bounce you off the tower and you will lose. It is tricky but kind of fun. Limbo Dance, another one-player game where we have to limbo across all these limbo bars and reach the goal. We have to hop with the A button to go lower. You can't go too fast or your character will fall over and lose. You can't bump into the bars either, or it's also a game over. The controls for this are really confusing. Why do we have to hop to go lower? That makes no sense. Instead of simply just walking or something. I feel like nowadays this probably would have worked better if it was a minigame where you had to balance yourself by moving the right joystick or something to adjust your balance or something, but it's still a fun challenge. Mario Bandstand, a rhythm game where one player is the conductor and the other three are the bandmates. The bandmates have to tap the A button to the timing of the instrument symbols on the screen, while the conductor tilts the joystick in time with the moving arrows. It's terribly easy and really boring, and the music is very irritating. Memory Match, a one-player memory match game where we ground pound on switches to flip them over. Each matching pair we get earns us up to 2 coins, and we get 10 coins altogether if we match all the pairs within the time limit. Watch out for the Bowser panels, which will daze you if you activate them. It gives you just enough time to match all of them without any mistakes. It's a simple but fun one. Mushroom Mix-Up. The players stand on platforms made of colored mushrooms. Toad will raise a flag matching a mushroom's color, which all the players need to race and jump onto before all the other mushrooms sink into the water. Anyone who falls into the water loses. The rounds get much faster as time goes on. This is a fun and very chaotic minigame. Just try not to jump on anyone or they will likely bounce you to your defeat. This minigame even returns in Mario Party 2 with a new look and name, Hexagon Haylock. Musical Mushroom, a game of musical chairs but with a giant mushroom in the center. The player runs around a giant mushroom as music plays, but as soon as the music stops, the players need to race to the top of the mushroom and get the treasure. It's a simple but fun game. Paddle Battle, the only joystick rotation game I actually like in this. In this 1 versus 3 game, one lone paddler has to out-paddle the opposing team of 3 paddlers to push the opposing team towards these tribal Shy Guys. It may have similar gameplay to a later game called Tug of War, but this one is visually and more conceptually fun. I do question why it has to be 1 versus 3 though. It honestly would have worked better as a 2 versus 2 game. Pedal Power, an annoying one-player minigame, one of the few minigames with the infamous joystick rotation controls. We have to rotate the joystick to power an electric bike to power a giant light bulb before a giant boom takes us away. The joystick rotation is boring and exhausting, but the atmosphere and music does set a rather spooky tone. Pipe Maze. Hard to believe this is a 1 versus 3 minigame, for no one is really on a team. This is a simple pipe maze where one player has to choose one of 4 pipes to drop a treasure chest, and as the treasure chest goes through the pipe maze, it will end up near a player, and whoever it ends up near gets to keep the treasure. It's mostly a dumb luck minigame. It does give you a very short and fast glimpse at the maze as it scrolls up at the beginning, but it doesn't give a very clear view to fully process the layout. I was never really a fan of dumb luck games or branching maze games like this. Piranha's Pursuit, a 1 versus 3 game where one player has to button mash to skateboard away from a killer moving piranha plant as we jump over fallen trees and swing across vines for a boost. Meanwhile, the 3-player team has to ground pound on a cloud to cause it to rain to make the piranha grow faster and bigger. I'm not a fan of this one for both ends. The minigame goes on for far too long, the button mashing gets tiring, the vine clinging feels very unresponsive, which can lead to very cheap deaths. Being on the cloud is pretty boring as well, and making the piranha grow doesn't seem to do much to stop the CPU player. It just takes dumb luck to win against the CPU. That is honestly the creepiest piranha plant I've ever seen in a video game. The way it moves is just so unnatural, buggy, and nightmarish. I don't like it. Platform Peril, a tricky platforming challenge where we race across a series of narrow platforms to reach the goal first. It can be very anxiety-raising. It would have been better off if it wasn't a race, and at least should have rewarded those who managed to make it to the finish, but it's still a fun one. This one does return in Mario Party 2 with more divided and trickier platforms. Running of the Bulb, this is one of the most unique minigames in the franchise. It's shocking that they've never done another one like this aside from Keep Away from the same game. Running of the Bulb is a rare case where the 4 players must work together to win the minigame. One player has a light bulb that they need to rush to the other end of the hallway to light the place up and scare away the boos. However, we are being chased by a giant boo as other boos come phasing through the walls. It's up to the other 3 players to protect the one with the light bulb by punching out the boos, but watch out, getting touched by a boo will possess them to try stealing the light bulb. The trance players can get the ghost punched out of them by their partners. If the ghosts reach the light bulb, it's game over. This is a tough challenge, but it's so satisfying if you manage to make it to the end. My only complaint is that the controls are too slippery. It's like you let go after running and the characters slowly take a few steps forward, and no, it's not because of joystick drift. It wasn't until the 2 Super Mario Party games on Switch where they finally made modes dedicated to cooperative minigames, so it's nice to see the spirit of this minigame lives on in some of the Switch entries 2 decades later. Shell Game, a 1-player game where we watch Koopas shuffle around and we have to pick the one with the treasure. Just one of those dumb shuffling prizes in a cup game. Shy Guy Says, I hate this one. A Shy Guy captain raises one of 2 flags mapped to either the A or B button as we have to raise our flags to match his movement, or he'll cut our line and eliminate us from the game. Last one standing wins. This one is just boring and frustrating. Eventually, he tries faking us out by pulling out 2 flags at once, and he'll even sometimes put them away multiple times at once, and he doesn't give us the option to correct ourselves if we tried matching one of his fake outs. I just never liked this one. I groan every time it gets picked, and I'm so sick of this being a minigame that Nintendo refuses to let die. They keep bringing it back in so many entries. Skateboard Scamper, a button-mashing platformer, as we ride skateboards to escape from falling in lava as we jump over thwomps. It's a fun idea, but the button mashing requirement is real tiring and boring. I would have preferred it if we could have just steered our characters to ride over speed boosts or something. Give us more control and not have it to require us button mashing like crazy to win. I don't know. This minigame does return with a haunted makeover in Mario Party 2. Slot Car Derby. Our big-headed characters drive around in these incredibly tiny cars as we accelerate by pushing the joystick As a kid, I hated this minigame. My character kept spinning out of control, and over the years, I learned that you have to let go of the joystick when the dust clouds start appearing, or the characters will spin out. If you have the rumble controls on, you can also let go when you start feeling a small rumble. This minigame comes in 2 track variants, so even after learning how to play this minigame properly, I still find it very boring and annoying. Slot Machine, a lame one-player minigame where we spin a slot machine and try matching symbols to get coins. If we fail, we lose coins. Teetering Tower, another one-player minigame where we have to hop across falling towers to reach the goal. The key is to slightly move in the direction of a nearby tower and hop off at the right time. It is very tricky at first, but after some practice, it's a fun challenge. I also love the visuals, like the character silhouette at the beginning and the moonlit background at the end. Tightrope Treachery. Jeesh, is every 1 vs 3 minigame in Mario Party 1 terrible? One-player tightropes as the team of 3 steers tiny ship cannons to try to shoot the rope crosser into the water. This minigame takes dumb luck, the aiming is hard, and shooting the roper usually does nothing. Rarely do they stun or knock them out. Being on the tightrope is boring as well. I just do not like this one. It's, for some reason, returns in Mario Party 2, but for some reason it's a really ridiculously hard to unlock bonus minigame. It was given a rehaul and renamed to Rainbow Run. Tipsy Tourney. The players run around while tilting a tiled board as we try guiding a Koopa shell to slide across all these tiles to flip them over and reveal an image. Whoever completes the full image first wins. This minigame does return in Mario Party 2, but with animated slide images, it's kind of a boring minigame. Treasure Divers. It's like Deep Sea Divers, but better. A 4-player minigame where we dive down a less deeper ocean and we try hauling back as much treasure as we can. No fishing rods required. Watch out for the sharks and bloopers. You also got to make sure to come up for air every once in a while. It's overall a fun race for gold. Tug of War. Another one of the infamous blister-inducing minigames. A 1 vs 3 minigame where one player in a Bowser suit has to play tug of war against 3 opposing teammates as we rotate the joystick. The loser gets flung into a Sarlacc pit knockoff with a giant piranha plant. I was never a fan of the joystick rotation minigames, and this has to be my least favorite out of all of them. And finally, there's Whack-A Piranha. Best one-player minigame in my opinion, and it's honestly one of the most fun takes I've ever seen of Whack-A-Mole. So Piranha Plant pops out of the warp pipes as we try combo jumping off of their heads, earning a coin for each head bopped. Make sure not to fall off of the pipes, though. There's something so fun about that. Turning Whack-A-Mole into a platformer, and it works really well. I'm surprised you don't see a lot of this in other Mario games. So overall, Mario Party has shown its age quite a bit. There are better entries on both the N64, GameCube, and even Switch, depending on who you ask. But when you look at it on its own, like ignoring all the other games that came after it, it still holds up on its own. It may not be as polished or have as much content as some of the other entries, but for a game that was released midway through the N64's life, it is packed with a lot of charm and fun, but it also has an equal mixture of frustration as well. Gameplay-wise, I do find it to be the weakest of the N64 trilogy, but it still has a great presentation with its menu and small stories tied in with its board maps. I've already done a review of Super Mario Party Jamboree, so if I were to rank these games from best to worst, I'd say Mario Party would be at the bottom so far. I give Mario Party a 7 out of 10. So join me next time when I review Mario Party 2. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day. Hello, SpongicX here with the 3rd episode of my Mario Party series review. I've already reviewed the latest entry, Super Mario Party Jamboree, and the very first Mario Party game. So let's move on to the sequel, Mario Party 2. Released in 1999, about a year after the first one. For many years, I've heard people praise this as the greatest entry in the series, so let's revisit it and see if it upholds its reputation. The game truly does feel like a continuation of the first game, reusing the same character models, animations, and voice clips from the first game, feeling like you're just playing a direct expansion of what the first game gave us. So while our heroes are placed in completely new environments, they feel just like levels and minigames that would have fit in perfectly with the first game. I always loved that charm of old 3D game sequels where an entirely new game still feels familiar, as if like you just opened up a whole new world that you couldn't access in the first game, without relying on rehashing or repeating everything the first game had to offer, with great examples being Banjo-Tooie or The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The game also contains the same composer from the first game. No music tracks in the first game are recycled per se, but we got a lot of catchy and memorable tunes that feel like lost tracks from the first game. I forgot to mention about the first game, but one thing that was so jarring about the original Mario Party Trilogy was how drastically different the characters sounded, with Charles Martinet being the only familiar voice in that game, with Charles Martinet being the longest running voice of Mario from 1991 all the way up to 2023. Everyone else sounds drastically different. Luigi was not voiced by Charles Martinet, so instead of his more chilled and relaxed voice from Mario Golf or Tennis, or his more timid nature from every game starting with Luigi's Mansion, Luigi in the Mario Party game sounds a lot louder. It was honestly my least favorite voice out of Luigi out of any of his video game appearances. Yahoo! Princess Peach did not have the sweet and soft-spoken voice that she is well known for. It wasn't really until Mario Golf, Tennis, and the GameCube era where she got that more familiar voice that we're used to. So in the original game, she had a really loud and shrill voice, and I honestly hated it. Yoshi made the same strange noises that he made in previous games like Super Mario World or Mario Kart 64, and to me that was jarring because the very first game I ever played was Yoshi's Story, so that was not only my introduction to video games, but my introduction to Yoshi, even the Mario series. And so, Yoshi was reinvented to have a cuter voice in Yoshi's Story, where his main dialogue was very Pokemon-like, where he just mostly says his name now, along with a few random exclamations like wow, whoa, grunting, snarling, and a whole bunch of cute gibberish. So, I always loved the cute Yoshi noises from Yoshi's Story, and so it was very jarring to then play games like Mario Kart 64 or Mario Party and notice how Yoshi made these really weird alien-like noises. I honestly didn't like it very much. Only a few other N64 games used Yoshi's Yoshi Story voice, including Super Smash Bros. And Mario Tennis. And it wasn't until the GameCube era where Yoshi's voice permanently became the Yoshi Story voice, and it still carries on to this day. Donkey Kong also had a drastically different voice. Back then, they used these really loud and annoying ape-like sounds, and I honestly hated those old sound clips. They were first used in Mario Kart 64, and they were used in nearly every N64 game that featured Donkey Kong, except for DK64, where Donkey Kong got a more human-like voice in that game in the form of Grant Kirkhope, the composer of Banjo-Kazooie and the voice of Mumbo Jumbo. It's a shame that Grant's voice as Donkey Kong was only used in one other game and it was just recycled voice clips for the game Mario Golf Toadstool Tour on GameCube. Honestly, I loved Grant Kirkhope as Donkey Kong, but they just had to move on with the buyout of Rare, I guess, and so it wasn't until 2004 with Mario Power Tennis where Donkey Kong got his current and longest running voice actor, a Japanese voice actor named Takashi Nagasako, who was the voice of Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time and the Japanese voice of Big the Cat from the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Takashi's take on Donkey Kong is a much more playful take on the character, showing off DK's more curious and ape-like nature while still being able to display his tough nature as well. He also laughs like Scooby-Doo now. Wario was also not voiced by Charles Martinet and had a much deeper and louder sounding, stereotypically Russian voice in this game. It wasn't as funny or pleasant as his higher pitched and nasally voice clips from Mario Kart 64 or the following Mario Sport games on N64 and GameCube. Across the N64 and first half of the GameCube era, starting with Super Mario 64 in 1996 all the way up to 2007 on the GameCube, Bowser used to have a drastically different voice. He made nothing but beastly roars, growls, and deep devilish laughs. It really fit Bowser's monstrous appearance and behavior. Nowadays, Bowser really has lost a lot of his edge and became more of a bumbling joke villain. He's now voiced by Kenneth W. James, who makes Bowser sound like a goofy children's entertainer. I honestly do not like Bowser's current voice very much. It's not awful per se, I just really miss when he actually sounded like a force to be reckoned with. It really matched his appearance. But Nintendo insists on dumbing down Bowser for the kiddies nowadays, so... You know, when I was a kid, I didn't love Bowser because he was a bumbling moron who made kids laugh. I loved him because he was a badass threat and a challenge. I was shocked that I actually liked Jack Black as Bowser in the Mario movie, because I feared they would make him goofy throughout, but they managed to find a good balance to make him both goofy and menacing when the movie needed to. So, the voice cast and sound quality of Mario Party can be quite a sore to listen to, but none of that compares to the annoyance that comes from the announcer. Ready, go! In the first three Mario Party games, they had this loud and nasally woman voicing all these narrations and anything from like starting the minigame or ending the minigame, calling it a draw. My god, is it annoying. It's almost like Lois Griffin is narrating everything. And so, announcers should make events fun and exciting, not annoying and off-key. Later Mario Party games replaced the nasally female voice with more generic male and female voices who sound more like they're about to show us a PowerPoint presentation for a business meeting. There's like no emotion or excitement in their voice, so why can't the announcers have like the same energy as the announcer from the first 2 Super Smash Bros. Games or something? Imagine how much more exciting it would be like if you have like someone shouting like "Go!" or "Finish!" or, you know, it's like that would make these games so much more exciting. So, let's get a voice that actually sounds proud and excited to be a part of this action. So, the game opens up with a fun and humorous cutscene of Toad presenting a play, telling the story of how Mario and his pals invented a new theme park, but become puzzled over what to name this new land. Wario starts a heated fight as he demands that it should be named after himself, Wario Land. Sit down, Wario, you've already had about 2 or 3 of these Wario Lands at this point. Everyone calms down as Peach seems to step in to be the voice of reason, until we get the comical twist of Peach wanting it to be named after herself, and everyone continues fighting. Suddenly, Bowser starts attacking all of the parks within the land. A friendly Koopa tries warning them, but they comically ignore him. Toad decides the land will be named after whoever saves the land from Bowser's wrath, as everyone agrees, and they set off for their next adventure. Right from the start, the game's intro does a better job at drawing in players with a much more funnier and more engaging conflict. It's still nothing to write home about, but compared to the first game where everyone's just arguing over wanting to be a superstar, this one definitely is a step up. Despite Bowser's big presence throughout the first game, he's not presented in the intro cutscene, so it just kind of feels forced when all of a sudden throughout the game you see Bowser as this big threat despite how he got no intro. And so I like how Mario Party 2 does a better job at actually showing that Bowser has an antagonist role in the story and why he needs to be stopped and all of that. So yeah, the story of Mario Party 2, it may once again paint the characters to be self-centered, but it at least topped the first one by getting kids more excited for the madness that's about to unfold. The game carries over the same gameplay from the first Mario Party game as we run around board maps to play mini-games, to collect coins in exchange for stars. Whoever has the most stars in the end wins. There are a few differences, both minor and major. So the chance time spaces are now green spaces instead of blue spaces, but they practically function the exact same way. Unlike the first game where all the chance time events had different backgrounds to fit whichever board map you're on, in this game they simplified it by having all of them just be like a room full of treasure. The mushroom spaces have been removed. One-player minigames were replaced with item minigames. The board maps now contain a permanent staple that has reappeared in every Mario Party game since, which are the items. Items allow assistance to players with the inclusions of the mushroom, which allow 2 dice rolls in 1 turn, the gold shrooms, which allow 3 dice rolls in 1 turn, warp blocks, which swap you with the place of another random player, the plunder chest, which allows you to steal items from a player of your choice, the Boo Bell, which allows players to summon Boo to appear at your space, and you can pay him 5 coins to steal coins from another, or pay him 50 coins to steal a star from another player. So unlike the first game, Boo's service is no longer free, but he can still steal more than 10 coins this time. He can even steal about 30 coins if you're lucky enough, but on average he usually steals a little over 20, that is if your opponent actually has that many. Other items include the skeleton key, which can be used to open gates for shortcuts to get to a star quicker, the Bowser costume, which allows a player to dress up as Bowser and steal coins from other players if you run into them while wearing the costume within a dice roll. The costume disappears once the wearer's turn ends. I always loved this item, but there's rarely ever a chance where I see anyone actually get this item. It's not really available in the item stores, and it seems to be a rare item that pops up on the overworld, but I've rarely ever seen someone actually steal coins from this. It only gives you a 10 dice roll, and a lot of the times when I see a CPU like activate this item, there's like no other CPU or players in sight, and so yeah, it just kind of anticlimactic. One of the most highly seeked items in this game is the magic lamp, which summons a genie who will warp us straight to a star, but we still have to have 20 coins to buy the star. The dual glove activates new minigames called dual minigames, so each level has its own exclusive dual minigame. Dual games can also be activated during the last 5 turns of a party, where 2 players landing on the same space will trigger a duel hosted by a Goomba, and whoever landed on the space that triggered the duel is allowed to place a wager for how many coins each player must sacrifice, and whoever wins gets to keep the full bet, doubling the coins they bet on. The items were a great addition to the series, but this game honestly has the worst implementation of the items out of the entire series. You can only hold up to one item at a time, and you're forced to use them up if you want to collect more items down the line. Now this can be a problem when you get a skeleton key, which can only be used to open a gate. So, unlike later entries where you can actually discard the keys if you don't think you'll be needing them. The one item limitations get very annoying. If a player gets a plunder chest, there's no point in aiming to buy or win an item after that, because chances are the player with the plunder chest will just steal it the next turn. Luckily, Mario Party 3 did fix these issues by giving us 2 additional item slots, allowing us to hold up to 3 items at a time, along with the option to discard the items that we don't want to use, including the keys. The worst item in this game is the Bowser Bomb. Baby Bowser from the first game returns as a dark opposite to Toad. So as the game begins, not only do we see where Toad's star space is, but we also see where Baby Bowser's space is as well. Baby Bowser serves as a downgrade to Bowser's spots from the first game. Baby Bowser will just steal 5 coins from us if we walk past him, unlike Bowser where he would steal 10 or more coins depending on which board map you were on. So Bowser is no longer spread around the board maps, although his spaces are still there. So every time someone collects a star from Toad, Baby Bowser will move his spot over to where the last star was collected. And if an unlucky player gets a Bowser Bomb from a minigame, at the end of the current turn, Bowser will appear where Baby Bowser's spot is, as Bowser rolls 3 dice at once, and if he crosses paths with an unlucky player, Bowser will steal all of their coins. On top of that, Bowser spaces are still a thing, so with the return of the Torture Roulette involving stealing coins and chance time events, he even has some fake out ones that promise players 1,000 coins or free stars, but every time this happens, he acts like Donald Trump when someone confronts him over his bullshit, and he flees like a coward. Another form of punishment Bowser has is called Bowser Revolution, where he takes everyone's coins and divides them equally, so everyone will have the same amount of coins. Good for those who have close to 0 coins, but terrible for those who have collected over like 50 coins. Overall, Bowser is a bigger and badder threat in this game, both in story and even in gameplay. I personally think the inclusion of Baby Bowser really slows the game down. It went by so quick in the first game, but now it takes twice as long, as we have to see where both Toad is going to be spawned, followed by where Baby Bowser will spawn as well. We have the introduction of the hidden blocks, these random events where a lucky player will find a block on a random space and it can contain either 20 coins or a free star. It's real annoying when a CPU gets one of these. Another new addition are the battle spaces, green spaces with lightning bolt symbols on them. Landing on them will summon Goomba to force everyone to participate in what's called a battle minigame. He spins a roulette to determine how many coins we must fork over as a wager, which can range from 10, 20, 30, to even 50 coins. There aren't a whole lot of battle minigames, but these minigames reward a huge chunk of the wager to the first place winner, where there's a smaller prize for second place, and it may even randomly give a pity coin to either third or fourth place. It feels so weird if fourth place actually gets a pity coin, but it gives third place nothing. That always feels so wrong to me. The idea of battle minigames were an interesting idea, but most of these minigames feel so pointless to be limited as battle minigames. It would have made more sense to just have the battle minigames just be random 4-player minigames that you can play regularly in the 4-player minigame mode, but they'll have adjusted rules to work as a battle minigame or something. I get that the biggest difference in these minigames is that it can reward whoever's in second place with a prize as well, unlike regular 4-player minigames. So many of these minigames feel elimination based, but meanwhile there are a lot of 4-player minigames that feel like they would have fit better as a battle minigame, yet they aren't. So with minigames like Hot Rope Jump or Honeycomb Hayvac, how come those weren't battle minigames? I feel like it might have worked better because those are elimination based. I really don't get how the mindset for the minigame rules work in this game. It's really confusing, honestly. A good percentage of these battle games are just repurposed minigames from the first game, but some are just horrible luck-based minigames. There's another new gimmick called the bank spaces, where walking past the bank spaces has Koopa force players to deposit 5 coins into the bank. If anyone lands on the bank space, they are rewarded with all the coins that were stored in the bank within the number of turns in that game. One of the most exciting features of Mario Party 2 is that within every level, there's a costume theme to match with the setting. As Bowser invades these lands with a new persona, our heroes suit up in an appropriate attire to challenge him, with the ending of each party having the game's winner be the one to take down Bowser. It's a great way of evolving the first game and making it more fun, entertaining, and exciting. The way the award ceremony gets interrupted each time with a cutscene of Bowser causing trouble only for the mysterious hero who opposes him to be revealed as the game's winner, that was a really great addition. I wish other Mario Party games could have topped that somehow, but no, none even tried replicating this. So honestly, this game has the best presentation when it comes to the party aspect. People have been begging for over 20 years now for the costume gimmick to return, and it never has. I think it would be even greater to be able to unlock costume pieces in future games where we can customize our characters' appearances and even have presets to fit like certain levels. So just like in Super Mario Odyssey, how you could customize Mario with costume pieces. I wish they could have a feature like that for the playable characters. So instead of having costumes exclusive to one map, let us choose how we want the characters to dress throughout the entire game. Not to mention that with the introductions of many characters after the release of Mario Party 2, it would be nice to see these characters get their own outfits, with the likes of characters like Waluigi, Rosalina, and Daisy as a few examples. So the costume gimmick was really fun, but it's a shame that they were locked strictly behind the board maps. For every time a minigame arrived, the characters revert back to their default outfits. Despite the primitive graphics, I think most of these outfits look great on the characters, but Princess Peach leaves a lot to be desired in near every level. Her outfits felt very lazy compared to the others, and I mean, come on, this is Princess Peach. She's been proven to be one of the most fashionable characters out of the entire series, so they insist on Peach wearing her poofy pink dress with every outfit she wears, while giving her a tiny shirt to wear over it. Now, considering how Peach has like arguably the tiniest torso out of all these characters, it means that a lot of the shirts that she wears will barely be noticeable. It would have been nice for them to recolor or retexture her dress to match the other outfits better. For instance, with Pirate Land, they should have had her dress have like a blue and white striped pattern to match like the pirate aesthetic. Or with Mystery Land, they should have given her a dress to match the color of her hat and shirt, or at least they should have given her some khaki shorts or something. The only outfit that looked right on Princess Peach, in my opinion, was her Horrorland outfit. I mean, that pink witch's hat and cloak, it really fits well with the pink dress she's already wearing. So for me, that was the only outfit that looked right on her. Everything else just looked like, they could have done a lot better. DK admittedly looks off in many of these levels as well. It's just so weird to see Donkey Kong wearing a shirt, but I know I'm not alone when I say that many of us Mario Party fans want the costume party gimmick back. It was a whole lot of fun. It was one of the main reasons people remember this game. It was one of the, the first things you see when you see the box art of this game. You see Mario wearing a cowboy hat, and you see all these other characters wearing different outfits. I feel like that's what really drew people into this game. They wanted to play as Mario and friends in all these different outfits. It's shocking that the costume party gimmick was used so early on in the Mario Party series, and it was only used for the second entry. You think they would have waited years or decades later to present this idea, and it just feels so odd to show it in the second game and then never bring it back. So the idea of this Disney World hub world is a neat idea. Some maps really do kind of feel like a parody of the Disney parks, with Pirate Land kind of feeling like a nod to Adventureland, for that was the home of Pirates of the Caribbean. You could say Western Land, it feels like a tribute to Frontierland, Space Land for Tomorrowland, and Horrorland for the Haunted Mansion. I guess the closest thing you have to what could resemble Fantasyland is the secret level, but a more morbid take on it, I guess, and I have no idea what Mystery Land is supposed to be. So there are only 5 levels and 1 hidden level in this game, 2 levels less than the first game, unfortunately. The hub world doesn't have as many attractions as the first game did either, but the houses from Mushroom Village seem to be condensed and repurposed to be more easily found in Mario Party 2 at least. So we got a simple menu where we select which level we want to go to. To the right, there's an options room with a sound test and all that. And the entrance to Minigame Land is towards the left, where Minigame Land is the closest thing you have to Mushroom Village, I guess. I wouldn't say it's as visually pleasing, though. It's just these little islands surrounded by water, a lot of grass, and got like these different entrances to different modes. Over to the left, we'll meet Woody, a giant talking tree, and he kind of replaces both the fortune teller from the minigame house and the shopkeep from the first game. So we can purchase the minigames from Woody through the coins that we've earned in party mode. Coins are more easy to obtain in this sequel. The first game only accepted the coins player 1 collected, while the stars were mainly used as a collectible for just unlocking the final level, for you needed 100 stars to unlock the final level. Then after that, stars are completely useless. Mario Party 2, not only are all the other players' coins added to the bank, but each star that each player collects gets converted to 50 additional coins, making coin collecting much easier and more rewarding in this game. Aside from Woody, this island also contains a bank to remind us of how many coins we currently have. There's also a message bottle that shows us our best time records that we've reached in certain minigames. So upon buying 5 minigames, the minigame stadium opens up. Similar to the first game, but this time it has 2 additional modes. So the 2 modes are basically focused on tournaments of minigames, with the first one being focused on battle minigames, where the other is focused on duel minigames. We also have trial mode, which leads us to an exclusive board map similar to the first game's minigame stadium, which gets rid of all the stars and board map gimmicks, Bowser spaces, and all that, and it focuses on nothing but the minigames, while only featuring the red and blue spaces, but this time we got the inclusion of the battle minigames. I kind of liked Minigame Stadium a lot better in the first game. I preferred the first game's star-shaped map, and I love the bushes that were shaped like the roster. That was a nice touch. And Mario Party 2, the board map is just a boring figure 8 shape. It doesn't really feel like they did much to decorate it. They added a few toads in the crowd, but other than that, it's really boring. It just doesn't stand out as much as the first one did. And then not to mention how in the first game, Minigame Stadium was great for collecting coins, because considering how a lot of the board maps on the regular single-player mode or party mode, how they had a lot of BS that basically stole all of your coins. And so it could have been where you wasted over an hour collecting coins just to end up with 5 in the end after an hour of gameplay because of all the CPU ganging up on you or all these terrible random events happening. So it makes you feel like you wasted a bunch of time. In Mario Party 2, you don't have to worry about that much, because honestly, the party mode rewards you more than the minigame trial mode does nowadays. Because the stars are worth 50 coins extra, and yeah, I just feel like you're better off collecting coins in party mode compared to the minigame trial mode. The 2 additional tournament modes are kind of boring as well. The duel mode is a great way to replay the duel minigames though, but you can only play the duel minigames you've actually discovered in the party mode, and you cannot buy these minigames from Woody, so they are the only minigames that you won't be able to find in the minigame park. You can only play them in the duel mode. The minigame park in the center of the land leads us to these 3 trees to represent the 4-player 1 versus 3 and 2 versus 2 minigames. This park serves as a great free play mode for where we can pick the minigames that we just want to play, the ones that we bought from Woody, that is, and we can play them as many times as we please. However, you might notice that there aren't any trees for item or battle minigames right away. Well, that's where we get to the worst part of Mario Party 2. So once you've earned enough coins and bought every single 4-player 1 versus 3 and 2 versus 2 minigame from Woody, you will unlock a new feature called the minigame coaster, which is this game's replacement for the first game's single-player mission challenge, Minigame Island. Minigame Island was a tough challenge that required us to travel a map similar to the overworld from Super Mario World. As each level space led to a minigame, we have to beat many minigames in a row to reach a checkpoint, allowing us to save and move on to the next set. Losing a minigame makes us lose a life, and if we lose them all, we get a game over and have to restart from the last checkpoint. It was challenging, but not impossible. Mario Party 2 really overdoes it, though. By having it be much more brutal in difficulty, it gives us less checkpoints and less chances of stocking up on lives. It doesn't help that many of these minigames are much harder than the selection from the first game, requiring too much luck. Minigame Island at least let us backtrack previous checkpoints and grind through minigames to collect 1-ups for some of the more challenging minigames later down the road. Minigame Coaster does not give us that luxury, for it's a one-way track. There are 3 difficulties to choose from: easy, normal, and hard. You can pretty much skip easy mode because it really just gives you a coin bonus at the end, but it really doesn't give you anything worth playing for. To 100% this game, you have to beat hard mode. So right away, you try selecting hard mode, but then it says that you have to beat normal mode first. And so normal mode only has you go through 6 worlds, where once you activate hard mode, it forces you to redo those 6 worlds, but on a harder difficulty. And then after that, you got 3 additional worlds to go through. So for the sake of this review, I'm going to use a sped up version of my footage, 20 times the speed, to give you an idea of how rough this mode was. It took me about 2 hours of gameplay to get through both normal and hard mode, and so this can kind of give you an idea of how repetitive this is. And admittedly, I did use save states during a few parts, but hey, it's not my fault that this game wants you to use lives on minigames that take dumb luck. It is really unfair. So each world contains about 4 to 6 minigames, so we go through some painful and frustrating minigames. We might get a few game overs just to finally reach World 6. We get an item tree seed, allowing us to plant an item tree in the minigame park, and we can also buy item minigames from Woody now. So then we're told to do it all over again, but on a harder difficulty. Also, if we go back to Woody and purchase all the item minigames, a piranha plant at the minigame park will gift us with a secret minigame called Dungeon Dash. It's just a reskin of a Mario Party minigame, more on that later. So as our patience gets tested, as we go through some stupid luck-based minigames once again, like Look Away and all this other bullcrap, we finally reach World 7, and our first minigame is one of the most annoying luck-based minigames here, Honeycomb Haylock. After we lose many lives or get many game overs from this, we finally reach level 2, which is likely the furthest most casual gamers have ever reached, and it's Mecha Marathon with overpowered CPU that button mash like crazy. So yeah, it's a button masher minigame, and I could not beat this as a kid, but over the years I finally learned a better trick to how to do it where it's still exhausting, but it's a more effective way of button mashing, and I'll explain a little bit more when I talk about the minigames. But so after busting your thumb to numbness and finally winning that minigame, you're greeted with another button masher right after. Holy hell, had enough? Oh, this game isn't done kicking your ass yet. You've got another button masher right after. And just when you think you finally have been given mercy, you're stabbed in the back with Shy Guy Says, and then Sneak and Snore with the most broken AI ever, giving you more game overs, forcing you to start all this crap all over. And trust me, if you're a Switch user, I will not shame you or blame you if you use save states. I admittedly resorted to it because I was just tired of being given headaches and thumb sores, and it will spare you a lot of time from seeing game over screens. It doesn't change the fact that you still have to beat the minigame fair and square. So, yeah, it's not like you're skipping segments. You're just skipping, going through all these instruction screens and all these loading times, you know. So it's just a way to try to get through it faster. That's all it is. So it's bad enough that these minigames suck, but the CPU were unstoppable and psychic in some of these, especially in Sneak and Snore. That one took forever for me to beat. I hated that one. Hated it. But don't try crawling away in pain just yet. It needs to drag you by the butt back in and kick your ass even more. And so we finally reach the goal. We are told by Toad that we were short on 1 coin and have to restart from the beginning, but we have the option to tell him no way. And right when that happens, the real Toad shows up and reveals that the one we're talking to is an imposter, and the fake is revealed to be not 1, but 3 baby Bowsers, and they force us to beat them in a game of Shell Shocked. But the game is rigged to where, unlike the regular game of Shell Shocked where everyone is hunting down each other, this one they all team up on us and try shooting us down all at once. It took me over 10 tries to luck out and finally beat them. Holy crap, that was a really hard challenge. It takes dumb luck to win, I am not kidding. So after going through hell and back, we come out victorious with the battle seed. We can now buy battle minigames from Woody. Upon buying all the battle minigames, we will once again be greeted by the piranha plant in the minigame park, and he'll gift us with another secret minigame called Rainbow Run, another reskin of a Mario Party 1 minigame. Once all minigames have been bought for all 5 minigame trees, Woody surprises us with 5 special minigames called Driver's Ed Course 1 through 5, where we drive around with the same tricky control scheme as seen in the minigame Bumper Balloon Cars, as we try to drive through these balloons while following the direction of these arrows. It's honestly a fun reward, but why did Nintendo have to make it so impossible for kids to reach, even for adults to reach? I was never able to get past Mecha Marathon as a kid, and even if I managed to make it past it as a kid, I likely would have gotten a game over from every minigame that followed. I absolutely hate the stupid minigame coaster mode. It is the worst part of this game. Never in my life have my thumbs ever felt so busted up. I felt like SpongeBob after that one episode where he broke his thumbs for giving too many thumbs up and he had to keep him in a wheelchair. All I could think of was that imagery. That's how my thumbs felt. So, after 100% beating the game on Wii U, I swore that I would never do this again. But for some reason, My stupid self had to torture myself for this review, and I went through it all again, this time on Switch, and it was just as miserable as it was before. I could have saved a lot of time if I just recorded footage off the Wii U version to save time, but no, I had to go back and torture myself for this review. I don't know why I did it, but I did. Nintendo, you're aware that children are your target audience, right? Why would you torture them like this? Why did you do this to us? You've likely crippled people's hands from the first game with those blisters in Mario Party 1, and then you make people beat the feeling out of their thumbs in the sequel. Why would you do this to us? Luckily, this is one of the last Mario Party games that have a mode that requires players to beat every single mini-game in order to complete the game. I mean, the underwhelming Mario Party Top 100 did have a mode that forces us to complete every mini-game to progress, but that game had no unlockable, so who cares? Super Mario Party Jamboree made a spiritual successor to both Minigame Island and Minigame Coaster, but the missions on there were optional. Many minigames were excluded from that mode, and not all minigames featured needed to be completed to unlock exclusive features or minigames. You might get some stupid decor that no one wants, and that's about it. So I am thankful that Nintendo finally ditched the minigame mission modes in future entries. But ever since Mario Party 3 onto Mario Party DS, they insisted on single-player modes that require winning the board maps to progress, which wasn't a very good substitute. It's still arguably less painful than going through the minigame coaster, but still not a very good option. There's a number of reasons for why minigame coaster was such a horrible idea, forcing players to work their way over halfway through a course only to be forced to do it again, but under a harder difficulty, just to reach the last 3 worlds, giving us limited checkpoints and lives, and games like this are exactly why I hate it when gamers bitch over modern games getting rid of life systems. Because of nightmarish luck-based games like this is exactly why I'm glad that we no longer have lives in games. I've had to suffer through games like this for over 2 decades. I hated them as a kid, never liked them as an adult. I'm so glad that many games are realizing how useless life systems are, and yeah, I'd just rather every video game from now on just get rid of them. They suck. I never liked them. I don't get why people complain over stuff like that. I mean, you still got to beat the levels fair and square, so people are just whining over nothing. I'm so sick of these people complaining over game developers trying to make it a little more accessible for younger kids. It's not like it removes the challenge entirely. These games can still be hard even without lives, so just quit whining. I play games to have fun and relieve stress, not to make me hate my life even more than I already do, so I am so glad that modes like this are a thing of the past. Okay, now that I've gotten that nightmare out of the way, let's move on to the board maps themselves, followed by the minigames. So as we select our board, Toad changes outfits as he leads us down the pipe. I don't think the character select screen is as good as the first games, where the first game felt like a magical fall down a warp pipe with this whimsical music, and we select the characters as we see them falling. It was just really charming, and the character select now consists of pre-rendered images of the characters on these little square icons, and it's just not as fun as seeing the animated models of the characters falling. Overall, it's just a huge downgrade from the first game's presentation. The first board map is Pirate Land, as all of our characters dress up as pirates as we adventure around a board set between a few islands, bridged by docks. As we arrive, we are informed that Captain Bowser is looking for treasure and we need to defeat him. It's worth mentioning that compared to the first game, this game actually remembers most of your pause screen options, including the option to skip minigame explanation screens and speed up messages, but you still have to set the setting to save your progress after every turn every time a new game is set. It wouldn't be until Mario Party 3 where it actually had the option to remember those settings every time. However, we still don't have an option to skip CPU or single player minigames, and that was an option that wasn't brought over until Mario Party 3. So for Pirate Land's item minigame, we have Roll Out the Barrels, a shuffling memory minigame where many items are hidden in these barrels, and we try to keep our eye on the prize as they shuffle around. Then once it stops, we have to pick our barrel and hope that we get the prize that we wanted. If we get Baby Bowser, we get nothing, and the same rule applies for every single item minigame in here. There's Baby Bowser, and you want to avoid him at all costs, and the same could go with Bowser Bombs, unless you think that strategically it could help you by sabotaging CPU. There's a real annoying random blue space in this game where landing on it causes a shark to force us to pay him a fee to ride across the island to the other side. There are a few cases where it might come in handy, but more often than not, it forces us to be taken past a star that we were chasing after. So this had no business being a random blue space. It either should have been part of a happening space or a simple NPC that we approach with the option to pay him or not for travel. So we also find the thwomps that serve the exact same purpose as the ones from Yoshi's Tropical Island in the first game. They make us pay a toll to take shortcuts, along with allowing us to bribe him to raise the toll for the rest of the game. The happening spaces have a pirate ship shoot cannons at us, and so anyone who's standing on the docks will get sent back to the start. It can be pesky, for it can happen very often, and the islands have a number of spaces, so it takes forever to traverse through this entire level. So I remember once playing a game where no stars were collected, because people couldn't get past the first dock because someone kept landing on the happening space every time. So yeah, that was quite an annoying juggle. The duel minigame here is called Saber Swipe, where we compete in a swashbuckling sword fight as we quickly type in the button command before the other player does. It's probably my favorite duel minigame in this whole game. At the awards ceremony, just as the winner is about to be announced, we are informed that Captain Bowser is causing more trouble. We find a Koopa who found lost treasure, only for Captain Bowser to threaten him to hand it over. The winner of the game is revealed as the mysterious hero who opposes Bowser, as the hero breaks into a sword fight with Bowser, and it's even implied that Bowser got stabbed with a sword. Wow, and this is an E-rated game? And with that, our pirate adventure is over. As a kid, Pirate Land used to be my favorite board, but I do find the map a bit lackluster nowadays. It still has a nice tropical theming, but the map layout and happening spaces really make this board a drag quite a bit. So it's still a good map overall though, just kind of a faulty one. Up next is Western Land, set around a railroad that goes around a western town setting. Bowser the Brash has taken over the town, and we must save the town from him. Happening spaces will cause a train to move from one of 4 train stations around the map, as it rams players who are standing in the way, and it will send them back to start. You can even pay 10 coins at a train station to summon the train, and you can ride him to the next station, but it requires rolling a dice. If you land on Toad, you'll advance forward, but if you get a Goomba, it will go backwards to the previous train station instead, so it is quite a gamble. Wiggler hosts a milk bar where you can pay the Wiggler to summon all the players at the bar. As a kid, I wondered why anyone would want to waste so much money on a useless feature, but obviously it's a way to pull players away from getting close to the star. So most often, I don't bother wasting my coins on this because it's just too overpriced, or usually by the time I get here, no one's really that close to the star anyway, so it's never really worth the gamble for me. As a kid, this part did kind of confuse me though, because one minute we see the character cheering, only to sit down with dizziness a few moments later. Only nowadays do I get it. It's obviously an implication that the characters got drunk at a bar, despite how it's a milk bar, but... So this detail was censored out in the remade version of the map from Super Mario Party Jamboree, but on the bright side, we actually got cutscenes of the characters sitting down and drinking milk this time, so it's kind of a good replacement at least. The item minigame Give Me a Break is a roulette wheel game where we pull on the brake to stop a baby train and collect whatever prize the arrow points to. This minigame takes dumb luck to win, for its halting ratio seems to randomly change each time this game loads up. As a kid, I thought the train had a really wobbly big nose, but nowadays I realize that it was a pacifier the whole time. But overall, I'm not a real big fan of this minigame. The dual minigame Quick Draw Corks, where we have to wait for Goomba to shout go to fire our corks into the backs of the other players with the press of the A button. It's okay. In the end, Bowser the Brash tries robbing a bank as we step in and defeat him in a silly cork gunfight. Next is Spaceland. It's one of my favorite maps in the game, but I do think it has one of the worst item and duel minigames here. It's a sci-fi level in a space station themed area. Our heroes are dressed up as fictional space heroes, and are tasked to stop Black Hole Bowser. Happening spaces involve thwomps driving around in these hovercrafts that will chase us across the board. Players can also hire these police sniffets to patrol the area with speed traps, and they'll chase the thwomp drivers to even further distances, which can also chase the players into further distances if they're caught in the middle of the chase. One of the biggest things to worry about in this map is the center countdown. In the center of the map are these many split paths, and every time one path is taken, the giant countdown begins. And once it reaches 0, Bowser fires a laser from a giant laser beam, and it goes diagonally across the whole board, and if a player is caught in the blast, they lose all of their coins. If no player is in sight, the laser fails to fire, and the countdown resets back to 5 every time the laser fails or fires. The item minigame is Hammer Slammer, a button masher strength test game. We get whichever prize our hit lands on. This one is very tricky, for going too fast will cause the marker to bounce off the top of the bell and back down towards Baby Bowser. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of this one. It's really hard to find the right balance. The duel game isn't very fun either. It's not awful, it's just kind of boring. So Time Bomb has a Goomba tell us a number, and we have to wait patiently to count down to that number that Goomba gives us with the press of the A button. Whoever timed the button closest to the number of seconds that Goomba gave us is the winner. It's overall just a boring counting and waiting game. In the end, our hero saves Koopa from Black Hole Bowser by running circles around Bowser until we zap him from behind and send him flying. It's also worth mentioning that Spaceland has some of the best music in this game out of all the board maps. Mystery Land is honestly my least favorite level in the game, being themed around ancient ruins with aliens, bob-bombs, and UFOs. Yeah, it's pretty random. And people flipped out when Indiana Jones crossed archaeology with aliens, yet gave Mario Party 2 a pass when it did nearly the same thing a decade earlier. So our heroes are dressed up as expeditioners as they have to take down Bowser dressed as a silly sphinx as he's tormenting people to solve riddles and traps his victims in stone. Happening spaces warp our heroes across the 4 different ruins. The only way to traverse to the next set of ruins is by the happening space or by reaching a bob-omb UFO and paying them 10 coins to give us a ride. This level feels very similar to Wario's Battle Canyon from the first game, but honestly not as fun. I always found this to be the most forgettable map in the game. Even as a kid, like every time this map was brought up, it's like I couldn't remember what happened in this board map. It's just so forgettable. It's got the most boring costume scheme, the most forgettable Bowser battle in the end, and the most unpleasant music track across the entire board map. The item minigame Mallet Go Round requires us to smash 2 pillars off a carousel to claim the prize on top. This minigame would have worked better if we only had to swing once, but it requires us to swing twice on the same item, and we got a very strict time limit, which makes it very likely that you could come out with nothing. The dual game Psychic Safari is a button masher where we alternate between mashing the A and B button, one after the other, as we try to strengthen our mushroom rocks to try overpowering the opponents. The level ends with Bowser Sphinx trapping a Koopa in a stone for failing to solve his riddle, but our hero steps in and reveals that the answer to the riddle is Bowser himself, and we win. Bowser's defeated, Koopa is freed. It felt the most anticlimactic, plus Bowser's riddle wasn't even a riddle, it was just a guessing game of who's that Pokemon, but with Bowser's face. Horrorland is the last costume-themed level, being another one of my favorite levels. Long before Mario Party 6 made a whole game themed around a party that goes on through day and night, Horrorland beat that game by a little under a decade with just one level. Horrorland is a spooky themed level set outside of a haunted mansion, flooded with Boo Ghosts and Mr. Eyes. Our heroes are dressed up as wizards or a witch if you're Princess Peach, as we try to stop Wizard Bowser from turning people into frogs. Bowser just looks like he's cosplaying as Lord Voldemort here, and so every 3 turns, day turns to night and vice versa. During the day, Boo will be available to steal coins or stars along with Womps. We gotta pay for shortcuts. At night, the Boos disappear and the Womps are petrified and can't move to open up shortcuts anymore. I feel like it should have been reversed. Doesn't it seem that like it would make more sense for these things to come out at night instead of daylight? I really don't get why they made that decision. It's just typical storytelling. Usually weird or supernatural stuff happens at night, not in bright sunlight. It just makes no sense here. We can also pay Mr. I to chase us diagonally across the board, either to the top left or bottom right, so depending on where we activate him. So you can also pay a group of Boos and Mr. I to change from day and night instantly. The item minigame is arguably the easiest in the game. Coffin congestion feels similar to roll out the barrels, but it's easier to spot where our desired item is, as we constantly see them warping to other coffins before they close. We smash open the coffin to claim our prize. The dual game Mushroom Brew has Goomba show us mushroom ingredients that we need to put into the cauldron to create a star. The mushrooms are color-coded by 3 buttons, so the blue shrooms are for the A button, green shrooms are for B button, and the gray shrooms are for the Z button, or the ZL button if you're playing on Switch with a Pro controller. So whoever gets the most correct ingredients gets to create a star and they win the game. We unfortunately do not get to keep the star that we created. So in the end, Wizard Bowser turns Koopa into a frog, we duel him, restore Koopa, and we also turn Bowser into a frog. And, yep, that's it. After each map is completed, we get a shocking yet hilarious surprise. As we return to the menu, Toad's welcome back dialogue gets interrupted as the baby Bowsers take over. They kidnap Toad and try acting like nothing happened. So a new level is open, being called Bowserland, as baby Bowser acts as our host for this level. Bowser Land could be summed up as this game's version of Disney's Magic Kingdom, for it's like right in the front dead center of the park, and it's got like all these amusement park rides, but it's of course more dark and morbid. It's surrounded by fire, and it's got Bowser's face plastered everywhere. Sadly, this is the only level with no costume gimmick. How funny would that have been if Bowser forced everyone to dress up as him, wearing like Bowser horns or the Bowser shell? That would have been really funny. But nope, we're just wearing our casual attire here. Every 5 turns, Baby Bowser will throw a parade that starts from the top center of the map and all the way towards the start, and if players get caught in the parade's path, they'll keep losing about 3 coins for every space taken until the parade ends. I once lost 33 coins for getting caught in the parade. So there are areas where we can pay a fee to rotate the parade's path to steer away from us and head towards other opponents. This map has a reversal for the bank feature. For walking by the bank actually gives us 5 free coins. But anyone who lands on the bank has to pay how many coins have been given out this whole game. And so yeah, that's pretty insane. This map also has the worst item and duel games in my opinion. The item game is Bowser Slots, which is just a direct clone of Slot Machine from Mario Party, but instead of giving us coins, we get items instead. It's one of the easiest item minigames to fail at, where you get nothing. The happening spaces can trap us in a ring around a blooper-based ride, and the only way to escape is to land on another happening space. Other happening spaces force us to go through warp pipes to the other ends of the map. Also, walking by a store space actually forces us to pay 12 coins to buy an item, and every time it's a skeleton key. The duel minigame, Rock Paper Mario, is an unfun clone of Rock Paper Scissors, where Mario beats Bowser, Bowser beats Peach, and Peach beats Mario. It's admittedly kind of funny, but I never liked Rock Paper Scissors in video games. Dumb luck games are never fun. At the end, the superstar faces off against Bowser to reclaim the theme park, but Bowser gains the Metal Cap power from Mario 64. So if you thought Super Smash Bros. Melee was the debut of Metal Bowser, actually it was Mario Party 2 all along. So the hero tries grabbing Bowser by the tail to throw him away Mario 64 style, but they can't do it and they give up. But the other players, along with Toad, cheer us on and they give us a star for power, as we succeed in tossing Bowser out of the park. In a funny reveal, the whole game story was revealed to be a play, as all the characters come on stage to take a bow for applause, and even Bowser was all a part of the act as we happily see him join the cast, and it's honestly a fun and silly ending. I miss the good old days when video game endings actually ended with a celebration, showing all the characters celebrating the day for being saved, along with congratulating the players for making it this far. Nowadays, games just awkwardly end abruptly and unceremoniously. They can have like an awful or unfunny joke or situation as it just abruptly cuts to the credits. I miss when video game endings actually left an impact. Even if they were very simple, they weren't, you know, like Hollywood writing or anything. They weren't like blockbuster smash hit writing, but it was still fun and simple. To finish it all off, we get a beautiful credit sequence as we get some pretty nighttime visuals of the park as the characters and villains fly across the screen with some pretty music playing in the background. A great way to finish off the game. Now on to the minigames. While Mario Party 2 has a handful of new minigames, it also recycles and repurposes many minigames from the first game. After Mario Party 2, it wouldn't be until Mario Party The Top 100, Mario Party Superstars, and Super Mario Party Jamboree where we'd see past minigames brought back into the series. Although there was one minigame that returned to Mario Party 4, but I don't really consider that like a game that brings back minigames if it only brings back just one. So a lot of these minigames had the excuse for being brought back in later entries, for it was an excuse for them to remake them with better graphics, where as for Mario Party 2, it's running on the exact same graphic engine, so it felt kind of pointless to bring some of these back. Most of them just felt like lazy rehashes with a new coat of paint. So here are the minigames that we can find in Mario Party 2. Abandoned Ship, a real tough button masher as we climb the poles of a sinking ship as we turn left and right with the joystick to dodge Cheep Cheep and other mess. The first to the top wins. The obstacles in this minigame are ridiculously hard to avoid, and it feels like there's an invisible force that's pushing us back from reaching the top. No matter how fast we button mash, it just feels like occasionally the characters will halt for no reason. I really hate this one. Archer Rival, a 1 vs 3 minigame where 3 players are turned into a cutout puppet on a stick, as an archer needs to shoot them all down within the time limit. This minigame honestly sucks. The reload and shooting controls are way too slow. The CPU puppets are brain dead stupid, often standing still, sandwiching their teammates, leaving everyone to die instead of trying to strategically spread out for a better advantage. I really hate this one. Bob-omb Barrage, another 1 vs 3 minigame where one player rides around in a wooden tub to avoid the 3-player team as they flick the joystick at different speeds and measures to fling bob-ombs inside the tub and sink the single player. This is a tough minigame on both ends. The bomb flinging can be very unpredictable and really hard to get a hold of. It is an improvement over the casting controls from Castaways from the first game, but it's still really hard to find the right balance. Luckily, the single players can deflect the bombs if they bounce off the edge of the tub. Balloon Burst, a 2 vs 2 reimagining of a 4-player minigame from the first game of the same name. We alternate between the A and B or Z button to inflate a balloon until it explodes. Despite now being a team game, there's really not much of a difference, except instead of a dungeon, we're now on these towers in front of a mountain setting, and the Bowser balloons look more comically adorable this time. Bob Sled Run, a returning minigame, also a 2 vs 2 minigame, this time with the sleds being shaped like penguins, and for some reason they have visible buttholes in an E-rated game. The track is entirely redone with more narrow paths, more fog, and the addition of speed boosts. I honestly like the first game's version of this minigame a lot better. It's harder for all the wrong reasons than the second one. With its poorly aged visuals and frame rate, it's harder to see where anything is with all that annoying fog, and I just hate how narrow everything is. And then with the addition of the speed boosts, which make everything go faster, yeah, I just don't like this one anymore. Bombs Away, another returning minigame, except it's bigger and crazier than before. On top of the cannon fire, we now have bullet bills, and at the end, Bowser fires a giant rocket towards the center of the island. I honestly didn't like this minigame from the first that much, and despite there not being a very big difference this time around, I actually prefer this version over the first. I like how Bowser upgraded from a pirate ship to a warship, and his amped up arsenal is more comically exciting. I somehow found myself dying less in this version compared to the first, despite how this one's more over the top. I cannot explain that, but overall I just enjoyed it better. Bowl Over, a return of the bowling game from the first one, a 1 vs 3 game where one player bowls over the 3 players trapped in bowling pin outfits as they hop around. Unlike the first game where the bowler only gets 1 shot and the losers will lose coins if they get hit, while the survivors get nothing, in this game the bowler has 2 chances to bowl all 3 players' pins down at once. If we fail, the 3-player team actually gets coins. So the first game had very strict controls for the pins, for there were invisible barriers that prevented us from moving too far. There are still invisible barriers this time, but they seem to be less frequent and they're easier to get around in this one at least, so it's overall still fun to play, and I love the Desert Canyon theming. For some reason, Mario Party 2 was obsessed with redesigning past minigames with themes that don't even match the minigame anymore. So some do not work well at all, but this is one where somehow it works. Bowling on a desert canyon, it's so bizarre, and it gives some cool sunset lighting. I really like it. Bowser's Big Blast, a battle minigame, and it's one of my most hated minigames, not only in this game, but out of any Mario Party game, and Nintendo just won't let it die. They keep bringing it back for some reason. It's another one of those turn-taking, luck-based minigames where the last one standing wins. We pull a switch and hope that it doesn't trigger the Bowser Bomb countdown, and sometimes this minigame can go on way too long. I hate minigames that take no skill to win. I don't like wasting my time waiting for everyone to get it over with. I'm more of a fan of the high-speed action kind of minigames where you just gotta get in there and get stuff done. I don't like waiting around. I don't like, it's just so boring. Nintendo, please just let this minigame die. Quit bringing it back. Bumper Balloon Cars, a battle minigame where each player drives a spiked vehicle with a balloon on the back. The goal is to get behind each driver and pop their balloons. Last one standing wins. The controls are very tricky. You accelerate by pressing up on the control stick and reverse by going backwards on the control stick as we steer left and right. However, turning puts the vehicle at a complete halt, so you cannot accelerate and turn at the same time. This is a very manic and unpredictable minigame, but it is still fun. Bumper Balls, the iconic minigame returns, and this time with 3 variants. The characters ditched those weird monster-faced balls from the first one and replaced them with these colored Luxo Jr. Pixar balls. And so the 3 variants include a tower surrounded by lava, which plays exactly like the first games. The second variant has us on top of a snow mountain with very slippery controls. I just love the morbid detail of there being a dead frozen Shy Guy in the center. Finally, there's the island variant, similar to the first game's arena, but this time with lumps and sand and rocks to make the layout more tricky to navigate. With a total of 3 variants, it really does make this slightly more entertaining than the first game's version of Bumper Balls, although it pretty much has the exact same gameplay and physics. Cake Factory. This is probably my favorite 2 vs 2 minigame. One player from each team is required to pick up the cakes from the conveyor belt with the A button, and you have to hold it to hold onto it, and then you let go to place it down. So the other team has to pick up the strawberries off the opposite conveyor belt and place them on top of the cake. It requires a lot of timing, as we not only have to act fast to get these items off the belts, but you have to make sure to place them down in a specific order. So like if you already placed the cake down, you cannot place another one down until your partner already put a strawberry on. Otherwise, you're just stacking 2 cakes on top of each other, and that's not allowed. And same can be said about strawberries. You cannot place a strawberry down until there's a cake on the center. Overall, it's just a really fun and frantic minigame. Crane Game. One of the worst 1 vs 3 minigames from Mario Party, but this time with no harsh punishments for the victims. This time, the crane player must collect all 3 players before time runs out. Along the way, we need to collect these watches to increase the time. The clocks don't require button mashing, but we still need a button mash to carry the other players, while the players still need a button mash to try to break free. I still don't like this minigame, but I will admit it is an improvement over the first one. I really appreciate how it gives the 3-player team a chance to win this time, instead of just making them helpless and just losing half their coins if they get captured. It's still an annoying minigame, but it's less annoying this time at least. Also, I love the outer space retheming, and I love how the crane now looks like a UFO. It almost makes you wonder if they were inspired by Toy Story with like Pizza Planet or something. Crazy Cutters, a returning Mario Party minigame. This time, it's a battle minigame. Once again, we have to control our characters on these jackhammers as we try drawing out to match these outlines of these 3 Mario enemies. This time with the inclusion of Chain Chomp, Blooper, and Cheep Cheep. I wasn't able to tell if the scoring issue was fixed in this minigame, unlike the first game, but there's an even bigger and more annoying glitch that occurred this time. I've never seen this happen before, but during one game, as I moved to the right, my character halted in the middle of the minigame, as if they just made a full lap around the outline. I ended up getting 0 points as everyone else kept going. It was so frustrating. I've never seen this happen before, so I almost want to say that this one is better than the first one, but because of that glitch, I have to say that it's actually better than the first game. It's a shame, though. I really want to like these minigames. They're such a cool idea. I love the idea of Crazy Cutters, but they're just plagued with so many issues. Day at the Races, a dumb luck battle minigame where we take turns picking between Bob-omb, Boo, Thwomp, or Womp as we watch them race and hope that our pick wins. It's basically just a horse race with Mario baddies. Have fun watching our picks randomly falling over and messing everything up. I roll my eyes every time this minigame gets picked. I don't even bother watching it anymore. It's like usually I'll just pull my phone out and wait for it to get over. It's just slow and boring. We don't even have a real choice with this one. The turn to pick the racers is based on who rolled the highest number from the beginning of the board map, which means that 4th place really won't have a choice in picking their character because they're forced to settle with whoever's last. I just can't stand this one. It sucks. Deep Sea Salvage. It's shocking to realize that Mario Party 2 is really lacking a variety of minigames that let us freely run around to collect as many coins as we can. This is the only 4-player minigame with this objective in Mario Party 2. It feels familiar to the treasure diving minigames from the first one, but we're in submarines that constantly descend as we tap the A button to surface, as we use the joystick to steer towards the coins that the Hammer Brothers drop while trying to avoid the mines. It's overall a simple but fun game. Destruction Duet, a 2 vs 2 minigame where each team has to smash their Bowser statues first. The key is to not rely on punching alone, and to occasionally try to jump kick as well. This minigame has 3 different variants with 3 different heights and defenses. The taller they are, the harder they are to break. One trick to try to get it done faster is to try jumping on top of the statue and ground pound on the statue, because ground pounding is the strongest attack you can do to destroy these, but you can only have 1 player on top at a time. But that mostly works only for the shortest variant of this minigame. For in the taller variants, it is possible to run around, jump on your partner for a boost to the top, but it can waste a bit of time for you to do that, so you're better off just standing there and just dealing punches and jump kicks. It's overall a fun idea, but I think this minigame would have worked better with multiple weaker statues instead of just one tough statue. It should have been a race to smash as many statues as we can, with bigger ones being worth more points despite being tougher to smash open. It's still a good minigame overall though, it just could have been better. Dizzy dancing. The players get dizzy from a giant record player as we guide our dizzy characters to the center of the record to try collecting the floating music note. The controls get really scrambled every time this minigame starts. For instance, one game could start off where turning left requires you to move forward, while turning right may require moving downward on the joystick. It's tricky, but it's a fun dizzy race to the music note. Driver's Ed. I already discussed this one earlier in the minigame coaster section. It's a really fun ultimate reward for completing the game, but it had no business needing such a ridiculous unlock requirement. It's split across 5 different race courses, but there are no rewards for beating them, but it does record your best records every time. I was nearly able to beat them all on the first try, but admittedly, during one of the early levels, I accidentally drove through an arrow incorrectly, so I had to start over. But other than that, I was able to get them all done with one try. Dungeon Dash, the minigame you unlock after beating normal mode in minigame Coaster, along with buying all the item minigames. It's just a rehash of Desert Dash from Mario Party. I don't get why we had to go through so much effort just to get a simple reskin of a forgettable minigame from the first, but admittedly, the dungeon escape premise is more visually fun than just scooting through a dry desert. It still wasn't worth the hassle of unlocking, but that's nothing compared to the other 2 hidden minigames that had even harder unlock requirements. Facelift. Just like in the first game, this is my favorite minigame, but too bad it's one minigame that rarely ever gets picked for its lock behind the battle spaces, and for some reason it doesn't spawn as much as other battle minigames. Not to mention how ridiculously hard it is to unlock the battle minigame tree for Minigame Park to allow you to play this minigame for free as many times as you want. Facelift plays just like before, but instead of messing with Bowser's face, we are now forced to mess with the playable characters' faces. Mario, Luigi, and Wario arguably have the funniest facial results, the most interactive face pulling, with us being able to mess with their hats, their nose, their mustache, ears, and lips. Peach is one of the most underwhelming characters to mess with, for her face is very off limits and all you can really mess with is her hair. Admittedly, her nose is too small, so I can kind of understand why they don't let you stretch that out, but you can't even stretch out her mouth or her chin or her ears, so yeah, Peach feels like one of the most boring characters you can get in this minigame. Yoshi just has his cheeks, nose, and mouth, while DK has the top of his hair, which for some reason looks like a swirly pile of poo in this minigame. You can also mess with his ears, his nostrils, and mouth. Overall, it's a fun surprise whenever it gets picked. It's a shame that we never got that DS Tech demo called Mario Face, where it let players mess with the faces of Mario and pals, but with the touch controls, it would have made for such a fun side feature in Mario 64 DS or even Mario Party DS. So yeah, I don't get why Nintendo only had that as a tech demo. They should have made that fun for everyone to try out. Filet Relay, a 1 vs 3 race where each player dresses up in these silly penguin outfits as we waddle by bashing the A button to reach the goal. Going too fast will cause the players to slip and fall, and give them quite a bit of time to recover. It's harder for the single player for their outfit is much heavier and slower, but it means that the 3-player team will have to limit their button mashing, otherwise they'll fall way too easily. So it's a silly minigame, and I love how each character gets a different colored costume that matches their characters. A feature that is sorely missing in every Mario Party game after this. Nowadays, each player gets a colored object or costume based on the player number they are. So usually like player 1 will get red, player 2 will get blue, or I miss when the colors were assigned by characters, like all of Mario's items being red, Peach's pink, Yoshi's green, DK's orange, etc. I miss that. It added such personality and character to these games. Grab Bag, another brought back minigame, this time as a battle minigame. We don't steal coins from each other like before, but instead steal mushrooms, so whoever has the most by the end wins. I was never a fan of this one in the first game. This minigame feels exactly the same as before, but now it's in an arena instead of a dungeon. I hate how it takes forever for the results to come up, as the CPU take forever to move into a certain position. It's painful to watch every time. Handcar Havok, one of the brought back minigames from Mario Party. It's overall a lot easier than the first, but it's still possible to fall off the track in this version, but you'd have to be stupid and try intentionally to fall off for that to happen. The first game had us in a fiery setting, while this one has more of a fantasy mine in the sky setting. I'm not a fan of the button mashing gameplay, but I do prefer this one over the first. for you don't have to rely on pulling on the brakes to make turns anymore. I do prefer the dark and fiery atmosphere from the first minigame, but versus the bright and foggy blank look of the sequel's version, but otherwise I'd say the gameplay is actually better in the sequel. Hexagon Heat, a reskin of Mushroom Mix-Up, replacing the mushrooms with metal hexagon platforms that rise out of the lava. So yeah, instead of water, we got lava. So Toad raises a colored flag as we rush over to the platform that matches that color before falling into the lava. Despite being the exact same game as before, this one does feel more intense than the first, for instead of falling to water, the characters get more brutally defeated by burning alive. So I do prefer Mushroom Mix-Up because I loved how it was just more colorful though. Honeycomb Hayback. One of the game's worst minigames. It takes incredibly dumb luck and leaves many players feeling hopeless. Ignore what those 90s honeycomb commercials told you. These are honeycombs that you do not want. This minigame is a whole lot of nothing, as we roll a dice from 1 to 2 to collect fruit while trying to avoid the honeycombs, which will cause angry bees to chase the victims out of the game.
Not the bees! Ah!
Last one standing wins. I question why this wasn't a battle minigame, but so there are so many ways that this minigame could have worked a lot better. The dice should have at least been able to roll up more than 2, maybe up to 4 or 5, and it should have been able to spin faster so it's more random. The fruits you collected should have been worth points, and the honeycomb should have at least subtracted points or forced you to skip a turn or something. So, again, why wasn't this a battle minigame? It feels like second place at least deserves something for making it that far. So, luckily, every minigame since Mario Party 9 was reinvented to reward second and third place players. So even though the rewards are minor compared to the first place though. So also the music in this minigame is very ear-grating, as if someone shoved bees and a harmonica into a grinder. Yeah, overall I absolutely hate this minigame. Hot Bob-omb, another revised minigame, now a battle elimination based game. So the first game ended after the bomb blew up on one player, but this time it lasts 3 rounds until one player is left standing. So I might have liked this minigame better if our coins weren't placed under a bet against our will. It makes losing this minigame more annoying than losing in the first game. So at least in the first game, if you got third or second, you didn't lose anything, but first place didn't win anything either. So yeah, either way, I just don't really care for this one. Hot Rope Jump, the return of an iconic minigame from the first game, and it's honestly better this time. The first game would abruptly end when one player lost, and it would just subtract a big number of coins from the loser, and it wouldn't bother rewarding anyone who actually didn't get hit. So this time, it's treated like a survival challenge, and it won't end until the last one is standing. If everyone loses at once, it's a draw, and no one wins. This minigame works so much better as a survival challenge, and I love the addition of how the flames start off blue, only to turn orange a little bit into the game. It really adds a bit of a visual flair to this, but I question why this wasn't a battle minigame. Feels like second place at least deserves a prize as well. So, Lava Isle Tile, a platforming brawl as these angry blocks start sliding around as we avoid standing on the moving ones, and we try punching other players into the lava. Last one standing wins, or it's a draw. This one is tricky on harder difficulties, but it's a fun challenge. Once again, why wasn't this a battle minigame? Lights Out, a 1 versus 3 game where one player has a mallet as they try bashing the 3 light bulbs out of the 3-player team. So this is the only minigame to have the return of the hammer from the first Mario Party. So the lights will occasionally go out, hiding the hammer wielder, but exposing the light bulbs. The hammer wielder needs to run around through the dark and knock out all the 3 players, while the other team needs to try surviving until time runs out. This is a really fun minigame on either end. Look away. Oh, I hate this minigame. A 1 versus 3 game where 3 players have to tilt the joystick to aim their character's floating heads in a direction that doesn't match player 1, or they get eliminated. Player 1 has 5 rounds to eliminate all 3 players, or it's game over, and the team of 3 wins. This minigame goes on way too long. It's annoying, it takes dumb luck, and it sucks how players can cancel out their moves and change directions after already picking one. The only good thing I have to say about this minigame is that the characters can have really goofy expressions when they've been foiled. They actually remade this minigame for Mario Party Superstars, and it ruined what little charm that this minigame had by replacing the floating heads with moving portraits of the characters' upper halves. And the characters no longer have the wacky anime expressions. They really don't even have facial expressions anymore. The minigame overall just really sucks. Looney Lumberjacks, a 2 vs 2 game where we alternate between the A and B buttons with our partners to saw a log before the opponent. The key isn't to do it as fast as possible, but to make sure that we make the longest cuts before switching buttons. Longer cuts equal stronger cuts. It's simple but fun. Magnet Karta, a 2 vs 2 game with the tricky control scheme from Bumper Balloon Kart, except with magnets on the front instead of spikes. We drive around to grab these coins and drive them back to our goals while trying to avoid bumping into our partners. The main goal is to reach the big treasure chest that's worth 10 coins, but it requires clearing out some of the other coins and money bags in the way first. Overall, it's a decent one. Mecha Marathon, a tiring button mash minigame where we have to button mash both the A and B button at the same time to wind up these mecha fly guys to fly across a racetrack. Now, when I was a kid, I could never mash fast enough, so I always lost this minigame. One thing I did wrong was that I was solely relying on just bending my thumb to button mash, but the real key is to put your entire arm into it. So what I do is I stick my thumb out sideways, like I'm giving a sideways thumbs up, and I just move my arm up and down rapidly fast to bash with the side of my thumb. So this would have saved me a lot of time if I knew this tactic back then, but it still doesn't change how repetitive, tiring, and boring the gameplay really is. This was one of the main reasons I could never beat Minigame Coaster back then, but even if I did beat it back then, I would have had an even harder time with the minigames that followed. So I don't hate this minigame as much as I used to, but it still brings back painful memories, and I still don't think it's a very good minigame. I can imagine this minigame was originally going to have the control scheme from Mario Party where you rotate with the joystick, but I can imagine after all the injuries that were reported, they had to turn it into a button masher instead. So move to the music, a pesky 1 vs 3 game where one player has to perform dance moves with the A, B, and Z buttons, along with 4 arrow directions with the joystick motions. So the 3 team members have to memorize the motions and take turns repeating them at the right moment. It's a very unfun minigame for the 3-player team, but on the bright side, it only goes on for 2 short rounds, so it ends pretty quickly, unlike later Mario Party games with similar gameplay that goes on way too long. Platform Peril, another brought back minigame. While the original minigame had some simple but fun visuals with the checker pattern platforms, admittedly it was very repetitive with the same evenly gapped platforms with the same size and randomly placed pyramid shapes on top to try to mess things up. But the sequel has a wider range of platforms, big and small. Some are motionless, some are moving, along with forward and back conveyor belts. It might be trickier than the first, but it's just more fun. I just wish it wasn't a race. It makes no sense to make it a race when everyone moves around at the same speed. It takes dumb luck to reach first place. I never bothered jumping for those floating coins, so they just feel like a distraction to slow you down. Quicksand Cache, or is it Quicksand Cache? I have no idea how to pronounce that. So, a 1 vs 3 game where one player in a giant Bowser costume has the godlike powers to control quicksand. Don't ask me how, it's weird, I know. The one player can change the direction by tilting the joystick left or right as they try to steer all the coins away from the other 3 players and guide them towards themselves. The other 3 players have to try not to get sucked into the center of the quicksand while trying to collect whatever coins they can. This minigame is obviously better if you're the one in the suit, but it's not an unfair minigame for the 3 players. The quicksand may slow the players down, but it's real easy to avoid getting sucked into the quicksand, as long as you make good judgment and distance. It can be tempting to try going for the sacks of coins that are worth 5, but once they reach a certain distance, you gotta make the wise choice to just let it go, or you'll just end up drowning in sand. So this minigame has no real winner, it just lets whoever keep whatever they collected, so it's a simple but fun one. Rainbow Run, one of the hardest minigames to unlock along with Driver's Ed. It requires beating hard mode in Minigame Coaster and buying all the other minigames. So you're rewarded with a reskin of Tightrope Treachery from Mario Party. Instead of crossing across a rope over the ocean, we walk across a rainbow beam and have to reach the rainbow ring at the end, which honestly looks like the intro and outro of every Tiny Toons episode. Meanwhile, the 3 players pilot flying ships to gun us down. It may be a rehash of a lame game from the first one, but I actually do like the colorful makeover it got. But why was such a forgettable minigame from the first one treated like a grand reward that requires beating a dumb luck expert mode that most kids won't even bother going through? It's such an underwhelming reward. It would have been better off as a regular minigame from the beginning. Rake 'em in, a battle minigame where we press the A button to have to control these giant mechanical rakes to rake these mushrooms into our baskets while trying to avoid the poison shrooms. Gold shrooms are worth the most points. This is a fun idea, but it's an incredibly faulty minigame. The rakes don't rake them in like they should, but instead they bump them to the side, it feels like. If it had actual raking physics, this would have been a really fun minigame, but the way it is, it's just way too faulty. Roll call. Oh great, what every kid wants in their video games. Math. We need to use the A button to count all of the characters on screen, while pressing the B button to subtract in case we overcounted. This can be a real tricky minigame, for the characters are constantly moving, which may lead to you having to recount a few times. So there are 3 variants of this minigame, including bob-ombs, where over time, 1 or more bob-omb may blow up, meaning that you'll have to make sure to subtract the ones that blew up. The boo variant has boos fading in and out, while toads may blend in with these mushrooms that are in the background. I don't hate this minigame, but I feel like in the cases where everyone counted wrong, it should at least reward whoever came closest to the right answer. Instead, it just says a draw and nobody gets anything. So this could have been a better minigame. It might have worked better as a battle minigame. Skateboard Scamper. Unlike the first game's crumbling brick path with lava and thwomps to avoid, this one has us being chased by a giant boo through a haunted mansion as we jump over these rising stairs and floor pieces. I do love the haunted makeover, but I feel like the gameplay is really flawed. It's hard to juggle between mashing the B button and then pressing the A button to jump every once in a while. It really feels like it causes you to lose speed in between, so it often feels like it takes dumb luck to get first place, just like in the first game. Shell Shocked. We control our characters in shell-shaped tanks as we fire straight or arching shots at the other players. We only have 2 HP and the last one standing wins. This minigame has 3 different stage variants picked at random, with the only difference being the placements of the warp pipe obstacles. I used to love this one as a kid, but I find it more annoying nowadays. The controls are too slow, the shooting range is short, and the aiming is horrible. It has bad hit collision, where sometimes you try like shooting past a warp pipe to shoot like a player, but instead it bumps right into the warp pipe despite how you weren't even aiming at it. So it often takes dumb luck to win this one. Maybe it would have been better if it gave us 5 HP instead of 2. This should have been a battle minigame instead of a 4-player minigame. Shock, Drop, and Roll. A crazy 1 versus 3 game where 3 players are trapped running on top of a giant wheel as one player pulls a lever to try changing the direction of the wheel to make them fall off into the electricity. This is a very challenging minigame for the 3-player team, and it may take a lot of practice, but once you get the hang of it, it can be a lot of fun on both ends. Shy Guy Says, ugh. One of my most hated minigames, and it returns once again. Nintendo just refuses to let this one die. We have to mimic the Shy Guy's pesky flags while trying not to fall for his pesky fake outs. This minigame has such a questionable redesign. It's the exact same gameplay, but instead of the fitting theming of a Captain Shy Guy cutting our lines, this time the Shy Guy is standing on a rainbow with a bow and arrow as the players are floating on balloons, only to have their balloons shot down if they fail to mimic his commands. What is with the drastic theme change? As bad as Shy Guy Says was, I will at least say the pirate theme actually worked really well with the gameplay. Sky Pilot, a 2 versus 2 race where one player steers a giant bird while the other player in the back moves the joystick up and down to flap the wings for speed. I feel very mixed about this one. It's a fun idea, but the controls are way too slow, and you're basically screwed if you're paired with a CPU pilot. The CPU are brain dead stupid and don't know how to steer. I always do well when I'm the pilot. I never lose when I'm the one in control. It helps that I memorize the layout of the boost rainbows. I remember where the cannons are located, the best directions to dodge them. It feels like dumb luck when you're the ones flapping the wings. We also gotta watch out for the Bowser balloons midway through the race. This minigame really does look inappropriate though, with the way that the characters in the back keep thrusting their heads up and down. I'm not even gonna bother saying what it looks like, but yeah, it looks totally wrong. Slot Car Derby, a brought back minigame from the first game where we move our characters in these tiny cars with just the joystick to accelerate, and we have to let go to slow down if the characters are starting to lose control, otherwise they'll spin out. So I always hated this minigame in the first game, and it somehow plays worse in the sequel. It feels like the characters are randomly dropping speed compared to the first one, and it's real hard to tell when the characters are about to spin out this time due to the zoomed out camera. So Unlike the first game, which only had 2 variants, this one has 3 different racetracks. Speed Hockey, a 2 vs 2 air hockey minigame with a Koopa shell for a hockey puck. It sounds like a fun minigame, but the shell moves way too fast and the bounce physics feel really off, and the CPU are brain dead slow and they are no help at all. They just stand around and do nothing. I hate this one. Sneak and Snore, oh my god. God, so many bad ones in a row. A self-based game where each player sneaks through a dungeon inside these barrels as we try activating a switch to open an exit while trying not to wake up the sleeping Chain Chomp. If the Chomp sees you outside of your barrel, you're out. The problem with this minigame is that it requires hiding in your barrel to evade the Chomp, and the only way to hide in your barrel is to let go of the joystick, but the characters have such delayed animations upon stopping that it feels impossible to hide right in time. The timing in this minigame is awful, and the minigame is more unbearable if you're playing on harder difficulties, for the CPU are practically programmed to move ridiculously fast, and they luck out every time. They rarely ever get caught, so Minigame Coaster's hard mode made me absolutely hate this minigame more than I ever did before. This minigame would have been so much better off if all you had to do was hold the Z button to instantly duck inside of your barrel. That would have had me forgive this minigame entirely, but because of that delay, it sucks all the fun that this minigame could have had. Tile Driver. We ground pound on a flip panel puzzle to match the character picture shown in the center, either being a Goomba, a Boo, or a Koopa. It's a very simple minigame, but it's inoffensive. Tipsy Tourney, a returning minigame from the first one, but with flashier animated tiles. It's the exact same gameplay as before. We run around to tilt a board to guide a Koopa shell to fill in these blank tiles, so the first one to complete it wins. It's a fun idea, but the tilt physics honestly kind of stink. It would probably have been done a lot better if it was remade today. I can't recall if it was ever remade, to be honest, in any of the HD Mario Party games. Toad Bandstand, a reimagining of Mario Bandstand from the first game, but now it's a 2 vs 2 game. We no longer have a conductor that's playable, for a CPU of Toad is now the conductor, but he has really no role to the minigame. So we no longer have the trumpeter or someone playing the violin, and instead we just had 2 fluters and 2 drummers. It's the same gameplay as before, as we time our instruments at the right moment to match the little music symbols. So while the music is less ear-grating this time around, I really have to say that I actually like the first game's version of this minigame better. The theming in that one being based on a concert stage setting, it just fit the minigame a lot better. And then it was fun how each player got a random instrument or the conductor role. Meanwhile, the sequel's version has us playing in a forest with giant random flowers that drop nuts on us if we mess up. So where it made more sense in the first one, where instead we got basically booed at by an audience and we had cans thrown at us. So the first game setting just fit this minigame's gameplay a lot better. Also, you didn't have to worry about losing the minigame because you're paired with a stupid partner who can't play the easiest rhythm minigame in the world. I got the CPU so brain dead in this when it comes to 2 vs 2, but then they're overpowered when it comes to the free-for-all minigames. I just don't understand it. Toad in the Box, a dice roll minigame where we have to land the dice on Toad 5 times to win. The first half of the minigame relies on timing, but the last 2 rolls get so fast that it relies on dumb luck. I'm overall not the biggest fan of this one. It's not awful, but I don't find it that fun either, but I do like the colorful game show scenery. Torpedo Targets. This is probably the worst 2 vs 2 minigame. One player pilots a submarine as the second player releases torpedoes. We can only fire 1 torpedo at a time and it takes forever to reload. The goal is to find these targets and shoot them down with the torpedoes. The controls and aiming for the sub are difficult and frustrating, and there's no camera controls, which really should have been used for this. The camera is awful, and worst of all, the CPU are brain dead stupid, and it takes dumb luck to win this one. This minigame really could have used a mini-map to show us the targets. This minigame would have worked so much better if more than 1 target appeared at a time. It really needed a crosshair, and the missiles should have at least had a slight homing beacon to them or something. It should have at least homed in a little bit on the targets to make the shooting easier. This was a fun idea for a minigame, but it's horribly wasted, especially by the stupid CPU partners that do absolutely nothing. Usually when I play this game, I for some reason get stuck with the torpedoes, and I get so annoyed at the CPU drivers who just sit there. It's like, just drive upward a little bit, give me a better position to aim at. And no, they just stand there. And then meanwhile, the CPU opponents come in and they just take the targets every time. This minigame is so freaking flawed. And finally, there's Totem Pole Pound. We ground pound on totems until they're buried into the ground. The first one to bury their totem pole wins. The key isn't to do it as fast as you can, but to ground pound at the height of your jump for a more powerful pound. I used to like this one as a kid, but I find it kind of boring nowadays, and when playing on harder difficulties, it feels like it takes dumb luck to win. I feel like the recovery time between the ground pounds take forever. It feels like you could just get it done a lot faster if it didn't have such slow recovery delays every time. So it really holds back what could have been a fun, simple minigame. So, what are my overall thoughts on Mario Party 2? Is it indeed the best Mario Party game ever made like most people claim it is? Well, I loved this game as a kid. Nowadays, I do find it a bit overrated. I do love the costume party gimmick, and the board maps and items are a huge improvement, and they make the party mode much more fun than they were in the first game. But a lot of these minigames are either frustrating, they drag on too long, take too much dumb luck, or they're just lazy rehashes from the first game. So I had a lot more fun with the board maps in this game, but honestly I felt very mixed about the minigame selection this time. I don't find the main menu or minigame land as entertaining as it should be. It's not as memorable as the layout of Mushroom Village, but I do like how much more condensed that it is now. Makes everything more easier to find and locate. I like how the minigames are easier to buy, with the easier ways to stock up on coins. Overall, the multiplayer party mode aspect might be better in this game, but as for the single player mode, it's honestly the worst single player mode out of the entire Mario Party franchise. Minigame Coaster is one of the most frustrating and exhausting experiences I've ever felt in a video game. Not even Sonic Shuffle got me this frustrated. I am so thankful that Nintendo ditched this type of arcade single player mode in future games, but what they did next with Mario Party 3 single player was honestly not the best substitute. More on that next time. I do think Mario Party 2 has the best presentation out of any Mario Party series though. I don't think it has the best gameplay, but it definitely has the best presentation. With a simple but fun intro to really get us into the game. It has amusing climaxes against Bowser to finish off each party. No entry since has ever come close to topping this game's presentation. So I might not love this game now as much as I did when I was a kid, but it's still overall a pretty good game. I don't think it deserves to be called the best Mario Party game ever made though. So out of the two Mario Party games I've already reviewed, I'd put Mario Party 2 below Super Mario Party Jamboree, but I'll definitely say Mario Party 2 is indeed better than the first game. I give Mario Party 2 a 7.5 out of 10. Join me next time when I look over the last entry to release on the N64 with Mario Party 3. Thank you so much for watching, see you next time, and have a great day. SpongicX here with a review on the third and final Mario Party game that was made for the N64, Mario Party 3. So while it carries the same 3D models and gameplay from the first two entries, it has a drastically different art style with everything looking like a paper cutout from a pop-up book or something. This game does not have the same composer from the first two games, which makes a lot of the music sound very different. It's not bad though, some of it is pretty good, but it's just feels so tonally different from the first two games. And most of the characters have brand new voice lines, or even completely different voice actors, with no recycled voice clips from the first game, aside from a few characters like Yoshi, DK, Bowser, Baby Bowser, Toad, and the NPCs. Charles Martinet took over as the voice of Luigi, although he does give Luigi a more nasally voice than the one he would regularly give Luigi in later games. And Princess Peach finally got her most iconic voice by Jen Taylor. So Jen Taylor may not be the current or longest running voice of Princess Peach. She started in the late 90s with her first game being Mario Golf on the N64, and she resigned from the role in 2007, while many later games did recycle a few of her voice clips here and then. So Jen gave Peach her more gentle and sweet speaking voice, which her current voice actress captures perfectly with her own take on the character. Jen Taylor went on to voice other notable characters in video games, especially Cortana from the Halo franchise. While Jen did give Peach her defining voice, she unfortunately ruined Toad's voice as well. For the Mario Party series, her voice as Toad wasn't used until Mario Party 4, but she did first voice Toad in both Mario Golf and Mario Tennis on the N64. And at the time, she gave Toad a cute voice. It was definitely a little more higher pitched than the voice you heard in Mario Kart or Mario Party. However, over the years, Toad got a lot louder, more higher pitched, and his voice just got way more gravelly. It sounds like someone's like just shouting with a really sore throat. It's like he's drowning in his own mucus as he shouts. I honestly cannot stand the modern direction that Toad's voice went in, and I wish they'd go back to how it sounded in the Mario Party trilogy. Originally released in Japan in 2000, the same year that Mario Party 2 finally released in North America, oddly enough, and North America didn't get Mario Party 3 until 2001, during the N64's last year of operation. It's the first entry to introduce two new playable characters, who ended up becoming mainstays for nearly every Mario spin-off and sport game to follow, with the return of Princess Daisy and Waluigi. Both of these characters were made playable for the first time ever in a recently released game at the time, and that was Mario Tennis on N64. Princess Daisy felt like a brand new character for many, but she was actually introduced as early as 1989, over a decade before Mario Tennis even released in Japan, for she was another princess that Mario had to save on his Game Boy debut, Super Mario Land. Princess Daisy was reintroduced and made playable for the first time in Mario Tennis. For Nintendo, were brainstorming for default partners for each character on the game for doubles matches in tennis, and they thought a second princess from a past game would be the best partner for Princess Peach. Similarly for Wario, but they couldn't find a character from their past catalog to be a perfect fit for Wario. They nearly considered making an ugly doppelganger of Princess Peach named Wa-Peach, but the idea was rejected in favor of a Luigi doppelganger named Waluigi. Both characters made great additions to the party, with Daisy finally being another female character, no longer making Peach the only girl to play as. So sisters no longer had to fight over who gets to be the princess, now they both can be a princess. But they still may have to fight over which princess they like better. Meanwhile, Waluigi complements characters like Mario, Luigi, and Wario perfectly. It's especially suitable for if you're playing a 4-player match, with all the characters wearing their hats, their mustaches, and overalls, and it makes for quite a colorful roster. While Waluigi never really changed throughout the years since his debut in Mario Tennis, Daisy was drastically different in the early days. In Mario Tennis, she looked nearly identical to Princess Peach, almost like she's a sister of her, except she had a short yellow dress, dark brown hair, and a red crown, with a flower brooch and earrings, along with tan skin. It wasn't until Mario Party 3 where we saw her in her regular royal attire, mostly being the same as what was shown in Tennis, but made to be a longer, poofier yellow dress, similar to Princess Peach's iconic pink dress. Daisy was originally voiced by Jen Taylor as well, giving Daisy a very sweet and soft-spoken voice, similarly to Princess Peach, but a little spunkier. Mario Party 4 and 5 reused the same voice clips from Daisy as used in Mario Party 3. However, in the GameCube era, Daisy was given a haircut. She now has much shorter hair than she did before, and her hair is now a less darker shade of brown, and they made her tan skin a lot more pale, which annoyed many players who noticed the whitewashing. In much later, more recent Mario games, it looks like they're trying to revert Daisy back to her original tan color, which made a lot of fans happy, especially those who felt represented by her skin color. So then came Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, where Daisy got a sudden rehaul out of nowhere, which left many who were recently reintroduced to Daisy on the N64 to be very puzzled. Daisy is now wearing orange shorts instead of a yellow skirt like Princess Peach, and she's suddenly louder and more in your face.
Hi, I'm Daisy!
A lot of people loved Deanne Mustard's voice as Daisy, but I personally found it kind of annoying. It was just a little too much for me, honestly. I honestly preferred her sweeter sounding voice in the original games on N64. Deanne Mustard recently retired from the role in 2023. She got a replacement voice actor who does a spot-on impression of Daisy's longest-running voice actress. So, while I was never the biggest fan of Daisy's louder and crazier overhaul introduced in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, I understand why Nintendo did it, though. Nintendo likely knows that Daisy was basically a Peach clone. She looked very similar to Peach, just with a different color scheme. She shared the exact same voice actress, so they obviously changed her to give her more of a personality, so she doesn't just feel like a clone of Peach. At least fans of Waluigi never had to worry about drastic changes to his character. If people loved Waluigi for who he was to begin with, they had nothing to worry about with his future, because he stayed the same. He's still Wario's partner in crime, just like before, and many fans loved him for that, and they still do, and it's just too bad that Waluigi gets horribly neglected in many games compared to Princess Daisy. There once was a time where Princess Daisy fans were complaining that she wasn't getting enough attention, and boy is it the opposite. She's in nearly every game now. She's even appeared in Super Mario Wonder. You know, it's really rare to get other characters aside from Mario and Luigi playable in those kind of games, with Peach and Rosalina being the only exceptions in past games, like in Super Mario 3D World. Waluigi has been excluded from rosters in quite a number of games, including Mario Kart 7, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Super Mario Run, and Super Mario Wonder, while Daisy was playable in all 4 of those games listed. Waluigi never even got to be in a game where he could be partnered with his best friend Wario, and he never even appeared in one of Wario's spin-offs, including Wario Land and WarioWare, and there's just not enough known about this character, which led fans that want to create like their own theories and stuff like that. Like, I know when I was first introduced to Waluigi, I and many others thought he was Wario's brother, but then Nintendo had to turn it down, saying that he is not Wario's brother. And so fans speculate, okay, he's his cousin then. And then Nintendo had to clarify, Waluigi is not even related to Wario. And it's like, why, Nintendo? Why are you ruining our fun? It's bad enough that they don't do anything with the character, but they can't even bother giving him a bit of a backstory. It's sad how, like, the only Mario character who really has, like, a plausible backstory is Rosalina from Mario Galaxy, and Nintendo, for some reason, is too afraid to expand their characters, and that's always disappointing. It came to a point where I was shocked that they actually shed a little bit of Peach's backstory in the Mario Brothers movie, but many fans think Waluigi deserves a lot better. Daisy fans begged Nintendo for years to do better with Daisy, and they finally listened, yet Nintendo still chooses to give Waluigi fans nothing, and it's honestly pretty depressing. Mario Party 3 carries over a lot from the first 2 games, but it also removes a lot. This is the first entry to have a file select, so you have 3 file options to save your data on, and it has a story mode. The story opens up with something called the Millennium Star as it falls from the sky, and our heroes fight over who gets to claim it. Suddenly, the star becomes sentient, and a magical dice block creature named Tumble, who looks just like Toad, but with instead of a mushroom head, he has a dice block for a head. And so, he abducts our heroes and traps them into a toy box that turns their entire world into a pop-up book art style, because the programmers were too lazy to make more 3D assets, I guess, and this was their excuse. And we're forced to compete for 7 star stamps to prove that we are worthy of the Millennium Star, so we can earn the title of the greatest superstar in the universe. Right away, this story is a whole bunch of random nonsense. The first 2 games had very simple stories, nothing to write home about, but they were charming in how simple they were, and they served their purpose in the gameplay. Mario Party 3 is trying so hard to tell a bigger story, but it comes across as a crazy and unfocused mess. What is the point of the giant toy box? Why do we have a paper cutout art style? It would have made more sense for Tumble to just trap us in a giant magical book instead. There's also the glaring issue I noticed in the narrative. They claim that the Millennium Star fell from the sky for it was a baby and couldn't keep itself up. Then why is the Millennium Star clearly elderly looking and sounding? And that's actually a detail you might want to keep in mind, because it kinda comes back with this game's so-called attempt at a twist. So, I've mentioned in the reviews for the first 2 games how the single-player minigame modes were a terrible idea, for it was expecting players to 100% complete the game by beating all the minigames with a limited amount of lives. A lot of these minigames take dumb luck to win. Not to mention how overpowered a lot of the CPU are, which don't really give human players, kids especially, a chance to compete fairly. So Mario Party 3 got rid of those pesky modes luckily, but it substituted it for something that's arguably much worse when you really think about it. Now they want us to go through all 6 of the brand new board maps and win them all to progress through the story, along with ranking how well we beat them. So it'll judge us from like a ranking of F to S rank. And so you don't have to get like an S rank to win, but it's like if you're dead set on 100% completing this game, if you want like the best score possible, that means that you might have to restart story mode multiple times just so you can get an S rank on one level you might have failed at. That is harsh. And so this wouldn't be a problem if each board map didn't take about an hour to complete, and if the game didn't mostly rely on dumb luck, where just one roll of the dice can screw you over no matter how close you are to first place. So, not to mention how on top of those 6 levels, there's an additional 6 levels that we got to complete. They're in the form of a new board game mode called the Duel Mode, which adds a bit of a strategic RPG auto battle mix to the board maps. Duel Mode sounds like a great idea, but in execution, it's really flawed and very frustrating, more than anything. So after we beat one board map, we are nearly granted a stamp to progress, until one of the other characters throws a whiny fit over how unfair it is, and they feel like they deserve the stamp more, and so the hosts allow it, and we're forced to duel that whiner in a game, because apparently that's how life works. Apparently when someone whines about something, they're supposed to be granted a chance to get what they want. Yeah, it sucks, I know. The cycle repeats itself. Meanwhile, throughout the game, they try and make it seem like Bowser will have some kind of antagonist role, but it's all for comic relief, and it has no good payoff in the end. But I will admit, the one scene where Daisy is not going to put up with Bowser's nonsense, as she one-hit KO smacks him clear into orbit, that gave me the biggest laugh out of this entire game. I do find it weird how the Millennium Star only lusts after Daisy, though. He has no reactions when looking at Peach whatsoever. Surely if he finds someone like Daisy attractive, he'd find Peach equally as attractive, if not more attractive. So this horny old star just hates blondes or the color pink, I guess, or something. And so, speaking of which, sadly, Daisy and Waluigi are not playable in story mode. They're not even unlockable for story mode, and can only be played in party mode for single or multiplayer. Daisy and Waluigi are treated as the bosses for the final 2 levels in story mode, in which we must compete with Daisy in a duel for the beauty stamp, but Waluigi steals the final mischief stamp and forces us to beat him in the final map, Waluigi's Island, if we want it back. So after finally getting all the stamps, the Millennium Star says that we have one last challenge, and that is to beat him in a duel, as we play the first boss fight minigame in the Mario Party series. Upon defeating him, we get the lame and underwhelming twist ending that the Millennium Star cannot grant us the title of greatest superstar in the universe, for he confesses that he's not the real Millennium Star and does not have the power to do that, and he flees like a coward. Suddenly, Tumble's dice hat opens up, revealing the real Millennium Star, just being a lazy, untextured power star, but with a rainbow glow around it, and it declares us to be the superstar of the universe. The world returns to normal, and Tumble and the star vanish as the credits roll. It's honestly the weakest and most underwhelming Mario Party story out of the N64 trilogy. No one really goes into these games for stories in the first place, but that's what kind of made the first 2 stories so much fun, presentation-wise. They didn't have to make the opening cutscenes or ending ceremonies, have these fun cinematics that tie everything together, but they did anyways, and they made it fun for kids who played it, and while fitting well into the settings of these games. In Mario Party 3, the board maps have no stories to tell, no unique openings or happy ending ceremonies, and not to mention how most of the cutscenes are just focused in story mode, like after the levels have been played, and so they're all basically the same thing, just characters lazily standing in front of Peach's castle with the same repetitive scenarios each time, where we nearly get a stamp only for another character to complain and our progress gets delayed, and then meanwhile Bowser tries confronting us but we ignore him or he's too late or something. So same thing happens over and over until it finally reaches its conclusion. So on top of that, this game has a lot less to see and do compared to the first 2 games. The first 2 games had all of these different menus that led to different modes and features, like the minigame stadiums, the minigame island or coaster, the shops and such. The first 2 games collected our coins and stars and allowed us to spend them on unlockables for the game. But Mario Party 3 does not save any of our coins or stars, so we can't unlock anything with them. Unlike the first 2 games where we have to unlock the minigames by buying them with coins, Mario Party 3 just requires us to have to randomly play the minigames one time and then it's unlocked. So, and that's also carried over into every Mario Party sequel since. It does admittedly save a lot of time, preventing us from having to grind on coins to, which sometimes can take way too long to get, and having to spend them one by one to get all these minigames. It is a lot simpler and easier, admittedly, but it does feel like it wipes out a lot of replay value in the process. There are 3 rare minigames that must be unlocked by other methods, and I'll go into those later when I talk about the minigames themselves. The only real reward you get aside from that is after beating the story mode with one character, that character's face gets carved into a Mount Rushmore parody that is located behind Peach's castle at the main menu. And getting all of them up there does absolutely nothing. So it's still crazy that the developers, they expect us to go through the story mode 6 times altogether to 100% complete this game. It takes over 6 hours to beat just one story mode, and that's if you're lucky enough to not lose a single match. And trust me, that's really hard to pull off. So I gave Mario Party 2 a hard time for its minigame coaster mode being the worst single-player challenge in the series history. I honestly take it back. It still sucks, don't get me wrong, but Mario Party 3 honestly did it worse. At least the minigame coaster can be beaten within 2 hours if you're lucky enough, especially with save states on the Switch version. But over 60 hours of gameplay to beat a story mode 6 times in one game is more ridiculous. The modes in this game include Battle Royale mode, which is basically just a different name for the party mode with the same board game gameplay from the first 2 party games. Duel mode leads us to the 6 duel boards, and minigame mode leads us to a library where we can freely play the minigames that we unlocked. There's also 2 extra doors, one which leads to a minigame tournament mode. It's just like the tournament modes, like the duel mode or battle mode inside of the minigame stadium in Mario Party 2, although the trial mode does not return, so you do not get like that exclusive board map that excludes the stars and hazards and only focuses on the red and blue spaces along with the minigames. That feature is sadly scrapped. And then there's the worst room in the game, Game Guy's room. I think I speak for most when I say that Game Guy is the worst aspect of Mario Party 3. So he's a game show host that wears a bow tie, he's a shy guy, and he has these spaces littered across the Battle Royale and duel modes, and he forces us to wager all of our coins for a very low chance of doubling or nothing our winnings in one of 4 dumb luck based minigames that all feature gambling. Not only are these minigames not suitable for a family friendly game, but they're not at all fun and can really contribute to being a major reason why you might end up not getting first place in a board map. If playing on the Switch, I will not blame you if you resort to using save states when some of these get triggered, but it'll only come in handy during 2 minigames, which are Magic Box and Sweet Surprise. But the save states won't help you for the other 2 minigames, for they are totally rigged with very low chances of you winning. It's bad enough that these minigames are littered across the board maps, but to make matters worse, in order to 100% complete this game, we need to earn 1,000 coins total in Game Guy's room. Game Guy's room is located in the minigame mode, where Game Guy has us play through a series of gambling minigames in a row. He randomly selects them, and we have to wager between 1 to 100 coins at a time. Luckily, we don't have to place the wager until the minigame is selected. So the quickest and easiest way to get 1,000 coins on the Switch version is to only gamble 1 coin at a time if you get like the Roulette or Lucky 7 minigame. But then if it's set to Sweet Surprise, just wager the most you can at a time. You can only wager up to 100 if you have at least 100 in your deck. But so you create a save state before picking one of the chain chomps that you bet on. And if your pick fails, just reload the save and try again until you win. And it's especially easier if you get the minigame Magic Box, where you have a chance at tripling your prize money. So again, just create a save state before opening a box, and if you find Toad, you choose to keep it, create another save state, and go on to try increasing your winnings. And if you get Baby Bowser, reload it and try the other box. It's that simple. So just keep doing that until you triple your reward, and that is the quickest and easiest way of getting 1,000 coins in this. Game Guy is single-handedly the worst decision ever made in a Mario Party series. The players can rejoice that he and his awful minigames were never seen again, but too bad we still have many dumb luck minigames to worry about in future entries. And so Peach's Castle just serves as this game's data, options, and sound test mode, so it leaves this to be one of the most emptiest hub worlds out of any of the Mario Party games. I mean, come on, Peach's Castle is the hub. There's so much they could have done with that, and it's just so underwhelming in the process. I do find it interesting how this is the first, and at the time, the only Mario Party game on N64 that had Peach's Castle featured. I mean, who doesn't love it when Peach's Castle's ever brought back, especially when it's the one that resembles the one we grew up with in Mario 64. The Battle Royale mode plays very similarly to the one in Mario Party 2 and 1, but it has some new additions, revisions, and even removals to change things up. The game's pause options can now save the options to save after every minigame, and we can now speed up the player's movement speed on the board map to speed up the gameplay, along with skipping single-player minigames that the CPU players trigger. So yeah, it's another welcoming addition, allowing the game to be sped up to have players do less waiting on CPU. That's a great feature. Most spaces from the previous games return, but with some differences. The most notable difference is that the spaces are no longer round, but are now shaped like octagons. It's just a stylistic change. It's nothing too drastic. It doesn't ruin anything unless you can't stand that shape for some reason. But the battle spaces now have a Goomba's face on them instead of a lightning bolt. The item spaces no longer have a treasure chest on them and now have Toad's face on them. The item system was greatly improved in this game. Not only can we hold up to 3 items at once, but we can even discard unwanted skeleton keys. We are only allowed to use 1 item per turn though. Item spaces trigger one of 2 options, either an item minigame or an item quiz. Unlike Mario Party 2 where each board map had its own unique item game, Mario Party 3 has a roulette to select one of a variety of item minigames to play. Sadly, all of them are worse than the ones that were featured in Mario Party 2, and most are likely to have you fail instead of actually winning a prize, because a lot of them are horribly luck-based with not the best controls or gameplay. If an item quiz occurs, Toad or Baby Bowser will ask us a personal question, like are we a picky eater, yes or no, and they will either reward us or leave us with nothing based on our answers. Messing with save states really proves that these questions are useless, and no matter what we choose, the results are randomly picked every time. So there's like one time where you select an answer and Toad is disappointed with your answer and decides you deserve nothing. Other times you reload the save state and click the exact same answer and Toad will reward you with 3 prizes instead. So I just pick whichever comes first, or create save states and keep loading them until I get something that can actually help me stay on top. But please, do not use save states if you're playing with other players. Only use this to exploit for story mode. Don't do it if you're playing for fun with friends. Item stores are more spread out and plentiful in this game, with more items to choose from, along with most of the items being 5 coins cheaper than they were in Mario Party 2. All of the items from Mario Party 2 return, along with a lot of new introductions, including the reverse shroom, which you can cast on another player or even yourself to move backwards on a dice roll. Useful to try delaying players who are a few spaces away from collecting a star, or you can use it on yourself in rare cases where the next star spawns right behind you or right underneath you. So just use the reverse shroom on your current turn to try moving backwards, and then just roll a normal dice the following turn and hopefully you'll get the star then. Poison shrooms function similarly, except they reduce the dice rolls and restrict it to a 1-to-3 ratio. We got these 2 phone items, including the Mushroom and Bowser phones. The Mushroom phone allows us to call Toad's shop and order an item for delivery, while Bowser's phone allows us to anger Bowser with a prank phone call and pretend to be another player, as Bowser will angrily warp over to the victim, spin his punishment wheel to torture them. It's a pretty funny item. There's a new item called the Lucky Lamp, where unlike the Magic Lamp, which would grant you transportation to buy a star, this time it will let you summon a magic fairy who scares away the current location of the star, causing it to respawn somewhere else. Great for foiling other players who are getting close to the star. Boo Repellent allows a player to scare off a boo that tries stealing a coin or a star away from them. After that, it expires. Too bad we have no Bowser or Game Guy spray. Speaking of the little bastard, there's a Game Guy coin item that allows you to summon another player or yourself to be forced to play a Game Guy game, which is just a very sadistic thing to do. There's 2 incredibly rare items. One is a red chest that works like the plunder chest from Mario Party 2, but it can steal not only 1, but it can even steal up to 3 items at once from a player. I've only ever seen a CPU player find this item only once in my entire lifetime playing this game, and it can be hidden within some of the event blocks. The final item is a pesky stopwatch, which can be unlocked through the item quizzes at random. If the stopwatch is used on the last turn, it will force the last 5 turns to repeat itself, forcing the game to drag on for 5 more turns. It's never fun to deal with them whenever someone gets it, especially if you're winning the game and you're just ready for it to wrap up, and then only for a stupid CPU player to use it. Oh, that sucks. The items might be a bit messy in this game, with how broken the minigame quiz prizes can be at times, and with how overflowing the maps are now with item spaces and shops, but overall, the item system in this is a lot more fun than it was in Mario Party 2, where it just felt way too limited and barren in that game, and it opens up a lot more possibilities for just much crazier sabotage, and it makes this one of the more fun board map experiences in Mario Party, but I feel like there's just too much that holds it back, including like some of the annoying happening spaces, and especially the Game Guy spaces. It holds it back from being the best party mode out of the entire trilogy. So onto the board maps. The first board map is Chilly Waters, the first snow and ice themed level in a Mario Party game. The center of the map has a frozen lake which will break if more than one player ends their turn while standing on the ice. There's also these slippery areas on the ice that lead to different paths, and walking over them gives us a 50-50 chance of slipping, which can prematurely end a dice roll. Happening spaces cause Mr. Blizzard to roll a giant snowball, which we can either jump over with the A button at the right time, or we can get chased away with them. Sometimes getting chased away by them might get you closer to a star, so it takes some exploration and memorization to master these shortcuts. It's overall a fun first level with a nice winter theme. Deep Bloober Sea is visually and musically my favorite map in the game, though it does have some very annoying gimmicks. Being the first level under the sea as we try avoiding a pesky shark that forces us to press the A button, which may launch a torpedo at us and send us down the wrong path. There's happening spaces where one of them can cause a mother blooper to place us on the wrong path, or a giant fish that tries sucking us up and spitting us towards another end of the map. So we have to button mash the A button to try swimming away from him or get eaten and spat out by the fish. However, it can also be exploited for shortcuts to get to certain stars faster, but it depends on what direction the arrow on the fish's head is pointing towards. Spiny Desert has happening spaces that can suck us into one of two sets of quicksand, which will spit us out into the other opposing quicksand on the other side of the map. Along with needing to hop over these cacti, getting pricked by the cacti will send us bouncing in pain towards a specific path, which can also be used for shortcuts for certain stars. It has one of the most unique yet annoying gimmicks out of all the maps in this game, where two stars appear at once. However, one of them is a mirage that disappears upon approaching. So many of these stars and mirages are placed on divided paths, which can make it frustrating if you went down the wrong path only to lead us to an illusion. Woody Woods is the first forest level in the Mario Party series, themed after Woody from the minigame land in Mario Party 2, with the front half featuring Woody and a bright side to the forest, while the back end features a spookier Woody clone, and it has like a dark and scarier looking forest setting. I really wish I could have loved this level, because I love forest levels in video games. They're some of my favorite visuals, with the pretty plant life and all that, and the tune is quite catchy, but the dang Monty Moles that keep flipping these path signs, they are what ruined this level for me. It happens every turn, and there are way too many signs in a row, not too far apart from each other, so at least Horrorland's day and night gimmick only happened every 3 turns on default. This level drags on the longest without anyone being able to come close to reaching a star due to how constant the sign flipping is. Both Woody and the Scary Woody have these happening spaces where Woody lets you pick one of 2 prizes from his leaves, which can be either coins or a free dice roll, while the evil tree either takes your coins or gives you a reverse dice block. Creepy Caverns is an underground cave level with happening spaces where minecarts can chase us across a track to the opposite end of the map. You can't really reach the other end of the map without those happening spaces or minecart rides, so it's honestly the most forgettable map in the game for me. Finally, Waluigi's Island feels like a villain's lair straight from a spy movie, complete with an island rigged with countdown explosives. The countdown triggers from 5 to 1 with every landing on a happening space near that area. The explosion will cause any players caught in the explosion to lose all of their coins, as the countdown resets itself back to 5. There's a nearby island with a pesky roulette that can lead to one of 4 arrow directions, and we have to time the A button right to try landing on one of the arrows that will lead us to a different island, and it can be really hard to time it right, especially with how fast it can get. And then there's these pesky bridges that can only be opened with happening spaces, and sometimes stars will spawn at places that require those bridges to be opened. This level just feels like a chore more than any other map in this game. Before I get onto the dual maps, let me describe dual mode first. They are smaller boards divided by a red and blue side. Usually they have like a pathway midway through the level that conjoins and kind of helps give shortcuts that lead back to the main goals. So the turn order is decided by a random coin toss represented by the Millennium Star, whether he's facing away or towards the players. And so each player starts off with 10 coins and a predetermined battle partner, which we can either put in front of us for offense or behind us for defense. We can get a second partner down the line, but it requires returning back to our starting goal and starting a roulette that gives us another partner. We start off with 5 heart HP, and the goal of the game is to use our partners to attack our opponents until they have no HP left, or until all 15 turns go by and whoever has the most HP left over wins. but if both players have the same HP by the end, then the winner is settled by a coin toss. To attack our players, we must pass by another player within a dice roll, and we can only attack if a partner is in the offense position. However, some partners are strictly for defense, so even if they are in the offensive position, they won't be able to attack, with Womp being a notable example, for he's meant for defense only. He has like the highest defense out of any character with 4 HP. However, the partners are demanding with their services, and they require us to pay them by each turn, and some of them have really expensive fees, where a character like Toad has the cheapest, where he only charges you 1 coin at a time, where others will expect you to pay them 6 each turn. So to earn coins to keep our partners, we either must land on minigame spaces that trigger 1 out of 10 dual minigames, or we have to land on these blank spaces that create a space with our characters' faces on them. If we land on our own spaces, we will get rewarded with coins, but if an opponent lands on a space with another character's face on it, then they have to pay that other player coins. Then there's this toy toad-looking creature in the center of each map. Every time a player walks by it, it counts down by 1, and once the countdown reaches the 0, it rings a bell, and we're forced to warp in front of that toad toy, and we're forced to play a duel minigame that can triple our prize, so instead of 10 coins, we can get 30 coins for winning that special duel. Overall, the minigame selection is a lot better this time around, but there's only one that I couldn't stand. So far, this sounds and looks like a very fun mode, but there's so much that ruins this mode for me, with the main problem being that it's all luck-based, and we have to get first place in all 6 of these board maps if we want to beat story mode at least once. Some default partners are way too overpowered, which makes some matchups against certain characters a real pain, especially with Donkey Kong, who always has a Womp equipped, which has the highest defense, or Daisy with Sniffit, who is one of the most overpowered and balanced characters, having both 2 HP and 2 attack points. Some of these characters are really frustrating to deal with, especially when a character starts off with these. The prices to keep some of these partners are way too high, especially with how hard it is to even earn coins in this mode. Even winning a bunch of minigames in a row isn't enough. Sniffit demands 6 coins at a time to stay on board, and it's hard to earn more than 10 coins a turn. There's these power-up spaces which can double your party's power and defense, but it will also double the fee that you gotta pay your partners to keep them, which can really cause you to become helpless really fast. Even if you somehow get enough coins to pay off your party, and you keep them powered up, as soon as you reach your goal, it forces them to revert back to their regular state, losing their powered up form, and you're forced to spin a roulette for another partner against your will, even if you're happy with the party you already have. This drawback really sucks. It should have asked us if we want to spin the roulette for another partner, not force us to do it. And it should have asked us if we want to replace the offense or defense after getting our character, not before getting the character. I wish it gave us these options to swap the offense and defense positions around at the beginning of each turn. For there are some examples where a space or some kind of event will cause your characters to flip directions, and that can't be good if you have like a character who's meant for defense put in the offensive position. And so, yeah, it's like I really wish that it gave you an option to swap them around at the start of a turn at least. This really needed more options to help players strategize better, which could have made the game more interesting. So if you manage to get 2 of the same characters on your party, their attack power will be doubled, and it won't double your coins, unlike the power-up spaces. So each character has their own stats and abilities. So Toad is the weakest in both categories of attack and defense, but he has a very lucky ability that can avoid players from having to pay the other players if they land on another player's space. Goomba has very weak defense, just like Toad, but he has double the attack power. Koopa is the opposite of Goomba, with weak attack power but double defense. Womp cannot attack, but he has the highest default defense with 4 HP. Thwomp has good defense and can automatically one-hit KO a rival partner, but he has a very low hit ratio. Boo has a chance of evading attacks. Mr. Blizzard will throw a snowball worth 1 hit damage, which will either hit the opponent or one of the opponent's 2 partners, where most partners cannot attack an opponent directly on, especially if there's offense or defense partners in the way. Chain Chomp has a very weak defense, but is the only player that can actually attack both a player and their partners all at once, worth 1 hit damage. Bob-omb is probably one of the worst characters, because right after he attacks, he dies. And he doesn't even do much damage, surprisingly. So Chain Chomp, Sniffit, and Piranha Plants are the most expensive partners, costing about 7 or more coins to operate. Baby Bowser has the lowest hit ratio. He does not have very good offense or defense, and most of his attacks miss. But he has a very rare chance of summoning Bowser, who will deal massive damage, which can lead to one-hit KOs. The odds of summoning Bowser are increased if you manage to get 2 Baby Bowsers on your team at once. But yeah, usually Baby Bowser is the most unreliable partner for me because he misses more than he hits, so he's really not worth having on your team, especially with his weak stats. Sniffit is the most balanced character with 2 HP and 2 attack damage. Occasionally he'll reward you with a few coins that he finds. And finally, there's Piranha Plant, who is the most powerful in offense, but has only 1 HP, which makes him way too easily to get knocked out. He may find and give you a random dice roll, which will give you an extra 1 to 3 on your dice roll. But this is more bad than good, often than not, since there's a lot of times where I'm happy with the space I landed on, but then that stupid extra dice roll appears, and it forces me to move to a space that usually ends up being worse than the one I wanted to land on. It really ruins a lot of good strategies that could have come out. So the 6 board maps in this mode are basically all the same thing. They basically nearly look the same. They might have a slightly different shape, but they have the same aesthetic and music. It's pretty boring. So first is Gate Guy, where we got to pay these gates 5 coins to take shortcuts. Arrowhead, where we can pick a random arrow at an intersection to change our route. Pipe Squeak, where taking a warp pipe leads us to random paths. Blowhard, where crossing a giant fan in the center reverses the positions of offense and defense. Mr. Mover has a conveyor belt which changes from left to right after each turn. And Backtrack is the messiest map, with arrow spaces that can reverse the track's order, forcing us to move reverse within the next turn. So overall, duel mode was a very fun novelty, and it makes for a fun and different multiplayer experience, but it relies way too much on dumb luck, with too many backfires that keep dragging the game on or ending it too prematurely. It makes for a terrible completion requirement for a single player story mode, which just makes this fun idea more annoying, and it has it overstay its welcome. No Mario Party sequel ever brought this experimental mode back, and it would have been neat to try to see them refine this in a future entry with more fun and expansive gameplay with better customization features. It's hard to get excited over getting a partner or coins in this mode when you know some bullcrap will just make you lose them within a matter of seconds. Imagine if they brought this feature back as an amiibo mode where we could power up, instead of partners, our own amiibos, and we could have them battle with other players online or something. What if it played more like a turn-based RPG, where once you encounter another character, you have many options to choose from, which can either be an attack, or some kind of stat-triggered event, or enhancements, or items to help us. This mode just needed more options and strategies, and if it was less restricted and relied less on dumb luck, this could have truly been a really great mode. Now on to the minigames. So in previous episodes, I listed these in alphabetical order, but to try to save time and make this a little more organized, I decided to make the script based off of a list of the minigames I found online, so just to help kind of keep them more categorized. So I'll start off with the 4-player minigames. First off is Treadmill Grill, as we run around trying to punch our opponents off a treadmill while avoiding the lava bubble enemies. It's a very challenging game. Ice Rink Risk, another game involving a lot of moving and dodging, except we're on slippery ice and have to avoid the spinies. We either want to move slowly or keep moving fast without stopping. For letting go of the joystick while moving fast will force our characters to slip and slide, leaving them very open to get hit by the spinies. It is frantic, tough, but fun. Parasol Plummet. We open and close our umbrellas to fall and float from the sky as we try collecting coins during our fall while trying to avoid the hammers. It's one of my favorite minigames in this. Messy Memory, an overwhelming minigame where we take a look at the placement of these items. They get mixed up and we have to try using our memory to put them back to where they were before. Whoever recreates it the most accurately wins. It is a mind-aching chore. It can be cheated, though, if you create save states or images with the snapshot button. If you keep looking back at those for comparisons, then, yeah, you can basically cheat this minigame. Picture Imperfect, a time roulette game where we press the A button to have a roulette land on the correct facial features, as we try accurately matching the faces of either Mario, Toad, or Wiggler. It's a fun and hilarious minigame, especially with the hilarious faces you can end up getting. MPIQ, which I guess stands for Mario Party Intelligence Quiz, so it's the first of many trivial minigames in this series. These questions mostly involve easier, more puzzling questions about the board maps, rules, and current rankings or items collected. Curtain call. NPCs appear on the stage and we're given 3 rounds to correctly answer the positions of random characters, like who was second from the right, for example. Whoever can answer all 3 correctly wins, or it's a draw. If you get one answer wrong, the player is eliminated and they're forced to do a humiliating dance for the rest of the minigame. I do think it's harsh to kick a player out for one wrong answer, but it is still pretty fun to see them dancing for the rest of the minigame. Cheap Cheap Chase is a clone of Skateboard Scamper from the last game, except instead of skateboarding and jumping, we gotta swim and dive. As we bash the A button to swim as fast as we can to try evading a giant hungry Cheep Cheep, and we have to press either B or Z at the right time to dive underwater and avoid these mine bombs. Snowball Summit is not only one of my favorite minigames in not only this game, but possibly the entire Mario Party franchise. It's a snowball fight, but instead of throwing the snow, we have to roll balls of snow until they are big enough to push other players off the summit. So we tap the B button to build up the ball, and we move it with the joystick to make it grow, and we press the A button to release it in the direction our characters are facing. It is a fun last one standing minigame. Toadstool Titan. Each player jumps at blocks until someone finds and claims a mega mushroom. That'll make our character grow as tall as the ceiling, as the giant player has to try ramming the other players out before time runs out, or it's declared a draw. It is a crazy and unpredictable minigame, but it's still a fun challenge. Aces High. This was the most tiring minigame for me. For some reason, it got picked like 2 or 3 times with every board map I chose, so it's the minigame I kept seeing the most. I don't recall ever seeing this minigame pop up as much when I was a kid, but for some reason during my recording for this review, this one popped up non-stop. So it's basically Star Fox 64's multiplayer, but it's slower and not as fun. You could also look at it as basically just Shell Shock from Mario Party 2, but with wings. So we fly around with only 2 HP, with very sluggish controls and bad aiming, terrible shooting controls as we try shooting down the other players till the last one standing wins, or it's a draw. It's not as fun as it should be. Bounce and Trounce. It's basically bumper balls, but worse, as we try spinning players off a crumbling arena while bouncing on these bouncy ball pogo sticks. Chip Shot Challenge. It's a very unfair and rigged minigame that requires us to either hit a golf ball into a hole, or whoever gets their ball closest to the hole wins. There is no good way to judge how far our gauge needs to be in order to approach the hole accurately. Unlike other games like Mario Golf, which gives you a better visual for that, the CPU are overpowered, and at least one of them is programmed to always get a hole-in-one. So it really makes this a very dumb luck minigame that you're less likely to win, unless you get really, really lucky. Mario's Puzzle League. 4 players compete in a match 2 or more puzzle game. The first to reach 100 points wins. It's a simple yet fun minigame, but the CPU are overpowered in this as they just spam combos like crazy, and it takes dumb luck to beat them. For combos can be very tricky to pull off, and with how fast the CPU are, along with how you're usually handed a bunch of colored blocks that you really don't need to build a combo at the time. It's like you might be building a perfect combo where, oh, you just need one more of a certain color to create a chain of events, but then it keeps handing you all these colors that you don't need, which causes the pattern you had perfectly laid out to get blocked off with other blocks, and it really forces you to fall behind. So it's a fun idea for a minigame. It is kind of flawed, but still fun. The Beat Goes On. A pesky Simon clone where players take turns repeating a previous drum beat played by button inputs, as we have to try to keep it going by adding an extra button command at the end of each turn, making it go on even longer. The minigame can be very overwhelming. It's easy to slip up. It can take forever, especially with how the CPU, they're less likely to get eliminated. So sometimes this minigame can go on until it just has no choice but to end because there's no more turns to go off of. It is a very boring minigame. Waterworld. It's a simple yet fun multi-lapped race around an oval-shaped water track. Frigid Ridges, a tricky race back and forth across these swervy ice roads as we try delivering 3 blocks of ice to the other end to reach the island on the other side. Awful Tower. Awful indeed. A platforming race to the top with the stiffest and clunkiest controls, making these tiny platforms much harder to reach than they should be. You know it's bad when even the broken CPU can't figure out how to win this one. Pipe Cleaners, a fun game of whack-a-mole where we tilt up or down with the joystick with the combination of A or B to whack these certain baby Bowsers for points. The highest to score wins. It's a really fun take on whack-a-mole. Rockin' Raceway, a slow, boring, and repetitive race as we repeatedly alternate between A and B to move a rocking horse across a derby track while trying not to use up all of our stamina. We can try eating these orange carrots for temporary infinite stamina, but if we collect them at the wrong time, they turn blue and they make our ride very dizzy for a bit. It's pretty boring overall. One thing I notice is, I'd say, unlike previous entries, this one has more misses than hits when it comes to 4-player minigames. There are a few good ones in there though, like Parasol Plummet or Snowball Summit, but then you just got a lot of stinkers like The Beat Goes On, Bounce and Trounce, and Chip Shot Challenge, Messy Memory, it's very divisive mix of minigames, that's for sure. On to 1 vs 3, Coconut Conk. One player rolls around in a barrel to avoid the players on the trees, as the ones on the trees try ground pounding to drop coconuts on the barrel roller. It's challenging, but okay. Spotlight Swim, another challenging one where one player tries swimming and diving to hide and evade from the other 3-player team, as they must shine all 3 of their spotlights on the player together to win. It can be tricky, but it's still kind of fun. Boulder Ball, one player tries bowling over the other 3 with boulders, as the team of 3 try having at least one of their members reach the top in order for their team to win. Crazy Cogs, another tricky one where 3 players are trapped on rotating cogs as they run to evade bullet bills that are heading right towards them, while the single player changes the cog's rotation with a lever to try steering the other players into the bullets. Hide and Seek, one of the worst 1 vs 3 minigames, not only in this but out of any Mario Party game. So 3 players choose a hiding place while 1 player has to find all 3 players within 3 turns, and if they do it, they win. So this minigame really drags on when it comes to hiding against the CPU. For the CPU, take forever to pick a hiding spot to expose, as we have to keep watching them slowly pace back and forth over every button to press. It is so annoying. I hate these dumb luck waiting games. They are not fun. River Raiders. One player steers a giant shell boat to collect coins and avoid logs, while trying to steer the skiers from behind away from the coins and towards the logs. It's more fun as the boat driver for the skiing is very limited with mobility, and it leaves us feeling very helpless when it comes to trying to reach coins or dodging logs. It's still an okay minigame. Tidal Toss, a pretty flawed one where 1 player has to ground pound to create waves to stun and knock players off an arena. So higher ground pounds equal bigger waves that can one hit knock out a player. So this one is somehow easier if you're on the 3-player team. For the CPU, for some reason, are very good at outmaneuvering any ground pound you do. So I usually find myself having better luck when I'm jumping over the waves compared to making the waves. Hand, Line, and Sinker. 1 player has to catch all 3 players dressed as fish with a fishing rod. This one is not that fun, especially if you're the fish. Ridiculous Relay. 1 player tries winning a race by hang gliding and trying to avoid hard-to-dodge bullet bills and Paragoombas, while the other 3 team members have to take turns to operate different vehicles to reach the end of the relay. Each player has their own unique vehicle and control scheme, with the glider tilting up and down on the joystick, the paddle boat alternating between A and B. The mechanical skeeter bug requires a combination of tilting up or down with the presses of the A or B button, while the motor boat requires mashing the A button. It's a fun minigame, but I have more fun when I'm on the 3-player team. It's real hard for single player to win with how ridiculous some of these enemies are to dodge. Thwomp Pull, a sled race pulled by thwomps, where 1 player has to press A, B, or Z at the right time to move the correct thwomp forward, while the 3-party team is assigned 1 button each, as they wait for their cue. It's a fun race, which can lead to very close and even matches. On a 2 vs 2, Eats a Pizza, a fun game that is heavily based on the treasure digging minigame from the first game, as each player has to mash the A button to dig and eat through a bunch of pizza. Whoever eats the most of their half of the pizza wins. Yeah, this one makes me hungry every time. Baby Bowser Broadside. Each team of 2 fires cannons at a Baby Bowser dummy as a tower rotates, along with the things that are holding our cannons, they start rotating as well. So whoever racks the most shots is the winning team. It can be pretty tricky with the constant movement and rotation, but it's still pretty fun. Cosmic Coaster. Each team has to slide left or right as we blast through the sky on a rail ride while dodging the signs that come flying right at us. Whoever reaches the end first wins. It is really hard to win this one, for there's so many signs that are hard to dodge and they really slow us down, and along with how uncooperative our CPU can be at times versus the 2 overpowered CPU that we're racing against. It's still a fun challenge, and the music gives me a Sonic the Hedgehog Sega Genesis vibe. Puddle Paddle. Each team works together to try button mashing and seek to paddle boats around to collect the most coins. Simple but fun. Log Jam. Each team races to chop the most logs, as one player places a log down by pressing the matching button on the log, as the axe wielder chops it by pressing the exact same matching button. It's another simple but really fun one. Pump Pumpin' Away. It's basically a less exciting clone of Balloon Burst from Mario Party 2. We alternate between A and B or Z to pump air into a rocket. Whoever's rocket flies the highest is the winner. Not as fun as blowing up a balloon. So, Hyper Hydrants. Whoever extinguishes the most flames wins, as one player pumps water with similar controls to Pump Pumpin' Away, while those who wield the hose have to aim with the joystick to douse out the flames. It's a fun idea, but being the one who pumps the water is not a fun role. It's more fun to hold the hose. Picking Panic. It's a fun idea wasted by terrible CPU that ruin everything. Each team swings left and right on the opposite sides of the screen as they try picking cherries from a tree and passing it down to the partner to place in a basket. The CPU are very unresponsive and rarely attempt to grab your throws if you're the one picking cherries. Etch and Catch, yet another minigame ruined by terrible CPU partners. Each player tries drawing a circle around a fast-moving toad head. Whoever captures the most toads wins. The CPU seem to want to meander around away from the target or even mimic your movement instead of thinking smart and trying to mirror your movements to perfectly capture the toads. It's a fun idea, but it's just made so frustrating with the slip-up CPU. Slot Sync. Surprisingly, the last duel minigame actually has cooperative CPU, so this feels like a 2 vs 2 reimagining of Mario Party 2's Toad in the Box, as each player needs to get matching characters on the roulette dice to rack up the most points, with Toad being worth the most points, while Baby Bowser subtracts 1 point. So the battle minigames are another really mixed batch, just like in Mario Party 2, with more stinkers than good ones. So Stacked Deck is a long and annoying luck-based game where each player takes turns ground-pounding these cards. If a player gets a Baby Bowser, they are eliminated. Getting a Boo will shuffle the turn order, while Toads will keep players safe to move on to the next round. I really hate this one. 3 Door Monty, a very simple idea ruined by very rigged CPU that are often impossible to even bother competing against. 3 NPCs enter a door and we are asked to correctly answer which NPC is in a certain door. So the fastest to correctly respond wins the game, and very often the CPU are programmed to answer way too ridiculously fast. It's just impossible for a human being to compete that fast, which really ruins this otherwise easy minigame. Merry Go Chomp, another long dumb luck game. It feels like a reskin of Bowser's Big Blast, basically. It's Bowser's Big Blast in disguise, because it's elimination based, and so at least this one goes on a lot quicker than Bowser's Big Blast, but it's still mechanically the same dumb luck game. Slapdown, another simple idea that can be ruined by overpowered CPU that just act way too quickly. So we wait for these flipping tiles to show a flower that matches an image that we are shown, and the first player to slap their hand down on the correct matching image wins. Locked Out, a fun idea but with very clunky controls. The players rush and fight over to collect these 3 matching keys in order to advance to the next room. So each room will have 1 less door and 1 less matching key, really making this an elimination-based minigame. I just wish that the grabbing controls were more responsive. I've lost many times because the grabbing controls are ridiculous. You can also punch the keys out of other players, but it's really hard to do because punching causes the characters to come to a complete halt, so it'd be easier if you can run and punch at the same time. All Fired Up is one of my most hated minigames in this duel mode. It's just so broken, as we have to dodge these hard-to-avoid lava bubbles with unpredictable movements. The CPU are rigged to rarely die in the game, and it feels like they're programmed to last until time runs out, and so I've exploited this minigame with save states, and it still feels like it's rigged to eliminate human players, while the CPU are programmed to just dodge every flame aimlessly. It is so frustrating. Storm Chasers. Each player chases a rain cloud to try watering a piranha plant so it outgrows the other player's plants by the end. It's a bit tricky of how fast the cloud moves, but it's still a pretty fun chase. Eyesore, a fun nod to Mario 64 as each player races to defeat their own Mr. Eye by running circles around him until he disappears. So while trying to avoid bumping into Mr. Eye along with dodging the lava bubbles that appear, this and Storm Chasers are arguably the best duel minigames in this game. On to the duel minigames. Vine with me. One of my favorite duel games, as we time the A button right to swing across these vines to reach the finish. Pop Gun Pickoff. A fun arcade shooter as we aim with the joysticks and mash the A button to rapidly shoot the baby Bowsers while trying to avoid the Toads. End of the Line. This is the only duel minigame I absolutely hate. It's just boring and it takes dumb luck to win usually. So each player chooses a left or right path to try reaching the goal, but if we take the wrong turn, our train gets sent back to the beginning. So we have to go through 3 different sets of tunnels, and we have to go through all 3 of them correctly or it warps us back to the start and we gotta start all over. So the first one to reach the end wins. It's an annoying game of both luck and trial and error. You can easily cheat this minigame just by creating save states before every tunnel and reloading if you take a wrong path, just to save time. Baby Bowser Bunkers, a 1 vs 1 reimagining of Whack-A-Plant from the first game, but with baby Bowsers instead. Whoever hops on the most baby Bowsers wins. It's a pretty fun one. Silly Screws, an alternating button mash race as we mash between the A or B buttons depending on what kind of screw that we're standing on, as we run across the screws to reach the next set of screws leading to the goal. So you have to slow down upon getting close to the next screw or goal, for the characters can only hop off of it once they're at a complete stop. If you move too fast, you can easily go past the exit point, and so it's overall pretty fun though. Crowd cover. Players are shown a picture with crowded characters on top of it, as we race to accurately answer which of the 3 images matches the giant image. It's a fun yet pressuring challenge. Tick-tock hop. Each player rides a moving clock hand as we have to jump over the other clock hand until the last one standing wins. It's a pretty fun challenge. Bowser Toss. We mash the A button as fast as we can while tilting the joystick up at the right angle to try tossing Bowser the furthest distance. It's a pretty fun but kind of challenging one. Motor Rooter, a fun fast-paced race as we can drive up these walls and even on the ceiling as we try driving over these speed boosts and dodge these electric traps. It's a fun challenge for speed junkies. Foul Play. It's a fun idea but very tricky as we try chasing and catching a chicken. It would have been so much easier with camera controls along with the ability to grab without coming to a complete halt every time. If only we could just dive to grab items like we could in Mario 64. The item minigames, these are some of the worst item games in the whole series. So Winner's Wheel, we just spin a prize wheel to claim a prize. Hey Batter Batter, one of the worst item games and one of the worst games of baseball I've ever played in a video game. Trying to find the right time to hit the ball to aim for the right prize we want is ridiculous to figure out, and hitting the ball spot on gives you nothing, as it just causes the ball to slowly be caught by baby Bowser. That's the reward we get for perfectly timing the hit. That is stupid. So thank goodness the Mario baseball games were more fun than this disgraceful minigame. Bobbing Balloons. We time the A button at the right time to try popping a balloon to collect a prize, but if we miss, the arrow ricochets back to our balloon, it pops us, and we get nothing. Dory Dip. We ground pound on Dory to have her scoop up a prize with her head while trying to avoid baby Bowser. Swinging with the Sharks. Another terrible luck-based game that is really hard to win, for there is no gauge to help us with our landings. We jump off a swing to try landing on a barrel with a prize inside. Most often you'll land in the water and get nothing. Yeah, I hate this one. Swing and Swipe. It's probably the easiest out of the item games as we chase baby Bowsers that have these chests loaded up with items. Finding the item we want is easy, but getting it is the trickier part, for the Bowsers scramble around too much, which can really make it hard to whack the correct one without accidentally whacking the wrong one. Now onto the 3 rare minigames. Stardust Battle is the final battle minigame that we get for completing story mode. We dodge falling stars, wait for them to cool down before they vanish. We try grabbing them and tossing them at the Millennium Star 3 times. It has 3 phases that change whenever the star gets hit. So the second phase has ooze coming out of the ground, slowing down our character's movement, while the third one gives the floor a slippery, reflective surface, making it way too easy to accidentally slip. So this minigame would be less frustrating if we didn't only have 1 HP, and if it didn't force us to have to exit the minigame, go through unskippable dialogue, and restart the minigame with an unskippable cutscene every time. That's what really annoys me about this. It came to a point where I created save states between certain phases to help it go by faster. Also, when you try to grab a star, it leaves you wide open to getting hit by the falling stars that come striking after you. So you can't always wait for them to just stop falling either, for they'll either fade away way too quickly or the Millennium Star will get back off the ground, making him harder to hit. And so Yeah, it was a neat idea to make a minigame out of a boss fight, but it was just too faulty. Luckily, later boss minigames and future sequels were a lot better. Dizzy Dinghies is unlocked upon collecting all basic minigames in the library. This minigame is a boat race similar to Waterworld, but strictly single player. We can choose between 3 short racetracks along with 3 different boats with different stats. So one boat has balance stats, one focuses on sharper turns, where the other focuses more on speed but has much slippery turning. So it reminds me of RMC Pro but with water boats instead. It's okay. Mario's Puzzle League Pro, an underwhelming reward for getting 1,000 coins in Game Guy's game room. So it's just a single player version of Mario's Puzzle League, which will save our highest scores. It sounds like a fun reward, but what ruins it for me is the 3-minute time limit, which is not much longer than how long the regular minigame in multiplayer mode is. So this minigame deserved to have the option to have an endless mode to see how long we can last until getting a game over. Luckily, this idea was made into a reality in Mario Party DS, for that game had a really fun feature where we can unlock single-player versions of every puzzle minigame from previous Mario Party entries. And so, Mario's Puzzle League offered an endless mode, and so yeah, that was a much better reward than whatever this game tried doing. Finally, the worst minigames out of the entire Mario Party series, Game Guy's games, where winning these rigged games allows us to double or nothing our wagers. So, Game Guy's Magic Box is a 50-50 game of picking one of the correct boxes. If we win once, we get just our wager back, but we have the option to play 2 more times. So winning a second time lets us double our winnings, while winning a third time in a row lets us triple our winnings. So this one can easily be exploited with save states. Game Guy's Sweet Surprise is practically the same as the last one, but more rigged, and it doesn't give us a chance to triple our prize, so we bet on which Chain Chomp we think will eat their cake first. Game Guy's Roulette is probably the worst out of all of these, where it does have the highest amount of coins that you can actually win, but because it's very less likely, because you're trying to win on, you know, a roulette wheel where it has more chances of losing than winning. Yeah, I really don't like this one. You can only win on the ones that you place a bet on, so yeah, it sucks. Finally, there's Game Guy's Lucky 7, a very rigged challenge where the players rarely win. Game Guy challenges us to either land a 7 on a dice roll, or we have to land closest to 7 within 2 dice rolls without going over, but it also has to be a higher number than whatever Game Guy himself rolls, so he's competing against us at the same time. Whenever Game Guy rolls over a 7, he'll lose, but that doesn't mean that we won. We still have to either land a 7 or get something close to a 6 or more. You know, we can't go over 7, so we have to get something that's either 7 or under. So I've rarely ever won at this one. It really feels like it's too rigged against us. So the moral of these mini games, gambling sucks. The minigames in Mario Party 3 are a really mixed bunch. I think it has some of the worst 4-player minigames, but it has a surprisingly decent amount of some 1 vs 3 and 2 vs 2 minigames. It arguably has the best dual minigames out of the entire franchise, but so in the end, I think Mario Party 3 is still a pretty decent game, but it has one of the worst story modes in the franchise, with the most lackluster presentation, art style, setting, and barely any unlockables. Story mode should not have to take over 60 hours to 100% complete, especially when said gameplay relies too much on dumb luck, which will force you to have to start over an hour's worth of a level. Dual mode was a fun idea, wasted with terrible restrictions and executions. The 2 additional playable characters were the most notable highlights of this game, along with the introduction of 2 additional item slots, while Game Guy is the greatest sin ever committed to this franchise. I don't think Mario Party 3 is a bad game like others have claimed it to be, but I do agree that it is the weakest of the N64 trilogy. It had potential to be the best with its great expansion of the item system, but some of the board maps had way too pesky of gimmicks, with all their happening spaces, the Game Guide spaces, and some of their other hazards. It really makes some of these board maps more annoying than they should have been. But they still have some great theming and great music. It's just, there's a lot of stuff that really holds it back from being the best board mode out of the entire game. So previously I ranked the Mario Party games I already reviewed out of a scale of 1 to 10, but I decided to not only do that, but This time I decided to make a tier list, which I'll keep changing with every review I make. So it goes from rank S to D, with S being the greatest and D being the worst. And so I don't think any of these games deserve to be an S rank just yet, for they all have a number of flaws that hold them back from being near perfection. So far, Super Mario Party Jamboree is at the top with an A rank, followed by Mario Party 2 and Mario Party 1 not far behind. I unfortunately don't find Mario Party 3 good enough to be in the A rank, but I don't find it terrible enough to be considered a bad game, so I'm just going to have it on the first of the B list, so just right below all the A list games. So I'd probably give Mario Party 3 a 6 out of 10, where I gave the other games an average of 7 or 7.5 out of 10. So this is the lowest scoring one so far, but I can already tell you it is not the worst in the series. Just the worst out of the ones I've reviewed so far. Join me next time when I review the first one on GameCube, Mario Party 4. Thank you so much for watching, see you next time, and have a great day.